Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 270. I'm very excited for today's interview. We have with us a wonderful guest who loves to teach women self-love and empowerment and how to use those tools to improve their health. Katy has an amazing story, and her story, I can't wait to get to your story. But what I love is that your background is as a certified yoga instructor, and also you are a graduate of the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. And now you work at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition as well. So we're definitely going to get into your story because I love hearing how women can recover their health. And I don't want to discredit any men listening. If you're not a woman and you're listening, I applaud you. And I believe that everyone can learn from what Katy has to share today. So welcome to the show, Katy.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. Thank you.
Yes, we've been trying to get this interview on the books for weeks. It's been one of those times where it's like everything just isn't working between our schedules again and again, and we're finally sitting down, and it's like the evening your time, and I'm thankful that that you've just carved out some time for us to both sit down together.
Oh my God.
You've had me on pins and needles waiting to finally hear your story. So so welcome, and I'm excited for you to get started. So I want you to get started with go all the way back to when your health issues began and kind of paint the picture for us.
I mean, all the way back
Yeah, like
is
tell us your story.
I mean, I guess I didn't realize that it went as far back as it did. And that's probably, I guess, true for a lot of people. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So the real beginning point is probably in adolescence. And a lot of my story and what I like to talk about and how I like to help people is really steeped in like our vision of ourselves and what we feel worthy of and how we define nourishment. So of course, as like a young woman, I had a lot of vanity. I still have vanity, but like, you know what I mean? I was really motivated by the exterior. And that kind of like morphed into some disordered eating. And the women I speak to a lot of times identify with that. And I think it's something a lot more common than we're allowed to really speak on. And it almost like, I don't know, I'm getting ahead of myself, but it's something I'm really passionate about, is sort of addressing that part of us.
So when you say
Um,
disordered eating, like how young were you, and what were the behaviors?
um, oh, I guess I got really obsessed with my size, like around probably 13 or 14.
Yeah. You know what? I had a woman on the show recently, and she moved me to tears. Actually, I was like, this doesn't happen often, but I was crying while I was interviewing her.
Oh,
And she
wow.
said that, and she works with similar to what you do. She works with women who have eating disorders, and she said that it's so common around the age of 13 because we're actually, as women, I didn't even know this, we're supposed to gain 50 pounds, but
Oh,
it takes about a year and a half to two years. But we as women, we gain about 50 pounds, and that's if you're like, a 90 or 100-pound kid, that's like a big deal. But she says that it takes, I mean, for some women it could take 3 years, but it's in that going into puberty that we all of a sudden, like, boom, like all of a sudden we've got hips, and we've got a little, we got a tushy, and now we've got maybe a little bit of a stomach, and we're
mhm.
growing a chest. But so that is kind of that time where either the mom or the dad or the the adults around that 13-year-old daughter will start body shaming, not even knowing they're body shaming, or
Mhm.
will try to get them into dieting, or maybe their
Mhm.
peers, or maybe they themselves are looking at their body going, what's going on, and need to start, eating differently. And it's so sad that in our society we don't teach 13-year-olds that, oh, this is beautiful, this is brilliant.
Right.
Let's help you to eat healthy and know that this is like this transition. And so
Totally.
there you were going through that transition that all 13-year-old girls do. And this is like something we really need to bring to the light to let
Oh,
women
yeah.
know that you're coming into your womanhood, and it's okay. You want to see this growth as long as
Mhm.
you continue feeling healthy, eating healthy. Just know that this is sort of that bumpy road that comes with the puberty.
Totally. And at that age, to understand the tools and understand what
Mm.
nourishment is, you know, I I'm getting ahead of myself. The reason why I went into the course at IAN is because I didn't know what I needed. I thought I needed to lose weight, which is like so sad. And like that's the most honest place I can come from, is to be like, looking back, I was like, yeah, I'll do this program, I'll lose weight. And it's embarrassing to say that now, given all the things that I've learned, but it's crazy to think that what I understood to be healthy and nourishing from the age of 13 to God, like 28, was just like how to be thin. To me, that's what health
Mm.
was, being thin.
And what is health to you now?
Health to me now is feeling that I am capable enough and smart enough, and I have enough self love and awareness that I can move through life sort of, I don't know, freely. Like eating disorders, and even control issues are all about feeling like you're not safe. You need to be in control of every aspect of every piece of your life, and knowing like, hey, I can navigate this without overthinking, without over planning, without controlling every little morsel or every little step of the way, is so freeing, and is so, I don't know, empowering, right? To be like,
Mhm.
okay, my thinking brain can shut up, my body knows, my spirit knows, like I as a woman know what I need. I don't know if that makes sense.
I love it. It does. It definitely resonates. That it's that you know you have what you need, and you feel confidence, and you feel self love, and you feel like you are intelligent. That you, if things come up, that you know you'll be able to be resourceful, and handle it.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Mhm.
like, I can have, I don't know, tater tots, or like, whatever treat that I like. And like I can have it, and I can know like I'm still safe. I don't have like a value system around it. I'm not shaming, and I'm also not afraid of it. You know what I mean? Because my physical body knows like, hey, that was enough. That was a nice treat. Like I'm really thirsty for water. Or like tomorrow I might want to go for a walk. Cause like the body knows what it needs. And if I can just trust it and trust myself, that's what feels healthy.
How long did it take you to trust yourself again after healing from the behaviors of an eating disorder?
I mean, it's an ongoing process. I really feel like the missing piece is always connection. Like, there's so much shame in having an eating disorder, and you like want to hide, you want to disappear. And I feel like the more we're able to talk about it, and the more I'm able to talk to people about it and offer insight or help or whatever I can do, or even just be like, yeah, girl, me too. Like it takes all of the air out of it. It
Mm,
goes from this like big scary thing to being like, poof, that wasn't so bad. So it's
yeah.
an ongoing process.
I like it. I think when I learned about self-trust, it blew me away, this idea. Because I mean, self-love, we can all kind of understand what self-love is. Like, okay, I make sure that I treat myself with as much care and respect as I treat someone I love. I make
Yeah,
sure that I don't like overburden myself with like helping other people first. Like, yes, it's always good to help people, but I make sure that, you know, I don't burn the candles at both ends for other people, right? Like, you know
hmm,
what? I've had to say no to people. Like, something like a friend is moving. I'm sorry, I can't help you pack. I need to get up the next morning. Like,
right.
I have to say no to, so that this part of self-love is saying no, so that we
Oh,
just
absolutely.
making sure that our basic needs are taken care of. And sometimes it takes pretending like we are like taking care of our best friend, or taking care of our partner, taking care of our child. Like, what would you cook your best friend if you wanted to like help them be healthier? What would
Totally.
you like, what kind of sleep regimen would you set up for your child so that they could
Right.
get A's in school? Like,
Totally.
we'll let ourselves stay up and binge watch Netflix or whatever, or you know go help
Totally.
someone else, but then like we anyways, we will it's we think it's because it's our body that we can just drag ourselves through the mud, but we wouldn't want
Right.
that for someone we love. So
Right.
self-love I get is sort of like treat yourself like you treat someone else, and I'll definitely want you to fill us in on your version of self-love because you have really
Yeah.
mastered this, and you, especially because you teach it also. But
How about
self-trust,
mastery?
well, it's mastery is like, it's a lifelong mission. But
Right.
self-trust is it really blew me away when I learned about self-trust. And it actually started with, I think it started with, along with launching this podcast, I interviewed some licensed mental health counselors, and one of them said, if you looked at the relationship you have with yourself as though it's a relationship you have with someone else, you'd call the cops on yourself.
Wow.
And that like hit me like, whoa. And then I started diving into studying self-trust and saw that there's a relationship between the amount of times that we feel like shame and guilt and beat ourselves up,
Yes.
and the amount of like how little self-trust we have. So
Oh, yeah.
if we keep saying like I'll go to the gym tomorrow, like we keep lying to ourselves. That's actually another thing. Dr. I believe it was Dr. Heidi Samani came on the show really early on, like within the first 10 episodes, and said, because I asked her what kind of advice you can give to people, she said stop lying. Stop
Yeah.
lying to yourself. And I think that was actually episode 1. She said stop lying to yourself. Don't say I'm only gonna eat one chocolate bar if you know perfectly well you're gonna eat two. Like don't say
Right.
I'm going to the gym tomorrow if you know you're just lying to yourself. Like just stop lying, because every time we
Yeah.
lie to ourselves, then we're whittling away at the self-trust we have,
Mhm.
and then we
100%.
just grow more and more shame and more guilt, and then we just want to hurt ourselves, by
Well,
not taking care of ourselves, right?
yeah, and you like reinforce this story. Like subconsciously you're reinforcing this story of like let's say you have a goal, maybe you want to run a 5K or something, and you're like, "Well, I've totally given up on every other goal that I've ever had. So why would I
Mhm.
ever do that?" Right? And
Mhm.
it is like a muscle that you need to kind of grow again. And I love that you brought up self-trust. I got like chills because I was literally just gonna like mention this and talk about this in terms of self-love because like every time you do a really small action step, you commit to something, maybe it's small, maybe you're like, I'm not going to buy coffee this morning, or like I'm going to go to this yoga class once a week, whatever it is, something really small. And to your point about lying, something that like even in your sort of hurt heart, if you feel very betrayed by yourself, something that you can still do and you can still show up for yourself. And the more you do these small things, like it's just like developing trust with a person in your life, like a friend or
Mhm.
a spouse, where you're like, you keep telling me you're going to do that and you never do it. So why would I ever believe you? It's that same internal dynamic that
Mhm.
gets so exhausting. And like our thinking brain wants to figure it out, wants to know. Our ego wants to like guess the failure before it even happens. You know what I mean? So like in some ways it if we get something out of it, you know what I mean? We get to be right because we're
Mhm.
reinforcing this story. And that's like with all goal setting, you know what I mean? It's like these actionable steps. It has to be so small so that you really do start to believe, like, hey, this is possible and it doesn't have to be so scary. And I think you can't really have self love without self trust. You know, it's like if you, I don't know, hit the yoga class or you went for a walk after work or you started meditating, which is like my big mountain right now, you know, whatever it is that you're working on, you know, consider it a practice. And then when you do it, it's like, oh, thanks for doing that. And you like feel this like, hey, self, oh my God, thank you. Like I needed that. I needed that more than what I'm used to doing, if that makes sense.
You needed yourself to fulfill on your promise to yourself.
100%.
Yeah. It's kind of like if you're uh, you're kind of trial separation from your spouse,
Mhm.
and you're on, yeah, I'm not saying you the listener, but if you've seen this, like you've seen it in other people, or you've seen it in the movies, right? You've got like, and they're trying to make it work and they want to make the relationship work, but one of them is not necessarily cheated, but one of them's like always says they're gonna show up and then on time, and then they're always late, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so this the one spouse that's always on time is just like, oh, he's just always late. He's just always going to be late.
Mhm.
He kind of never is his word. He,
Mhm.
he says he's going to come and then he like has to work late, and so that then she's left sort of like not trusting him, and when he says other things like I'll make sure that I get the kids to school, or then she's kind of left going, I don't think he will. I just don't
Right.
he doesn't, he kind of hasn't built any credit with me,
Mhm.
in the off the in the department of trustworthiness, right?
Right.
So the problem with that then is we start to question everything he does. Is he even lying to me? Like when he says, like, is he even trying, or does he know that? So we start going, what's up with this guy? And
Yeah.
that's the exact same thing we do to ourselves,
Oh, absolutely.
right? So now we'll say like, yeah, I want to run that marathon. Then all the little inner dialogues like, well, you're always late, and
Right.
you can't,
You
you
can't wake
know,
up early,
yeah, you can't
whatever
wake
it
up
is.
early, and there you never, every time you say they're going to go to the gym, like 90% of the time you don't, and like, you can't accomplish things, right?
Right.
And so then
Right.
we just kind of listen to that inner dialogue and give up.
Yeah, and it's interesting, something that I just heard on Oprah Winfrey's podcast. It was an old episode, but Elizabeth Gilbert was on, and she said it was sort of in the same vein of this conversation, just about like self love, self trust, and these sort of dialogues in our head, and when it's like ego, and when it's kind of your higher self or whatever guiding you. And I think that women were generally, again, nothing against the men listening, but there is something very beautiful about this relationship with self that I feel like women are really naturally interested in. And what Elizabeth Gilbert said was, when you hear that voice that says these mean things to you, that says, you're not going to get up early, or you always order takeout for lunch, or whatever these whatever these really cruel bits of dialogue are that are going on, they may feel really true. Um, but that's not how spirit speaks. That's not how your
Mm.
higher power speaks. Your beautiful spirit self, like who you truly are, is sweet and is beautiful and is kind and would know all of the things that you're wrapped up in, everything that you carry. And I had a yoga teacher once that said, be sweet to yourself. And I've never let that go. It's like, yeah, that voice that says, like, hey, calm down. Like, you're fine. You're beautiful. You got this. That's the voice that gets like pushed down so often. And again, with what we were talking about earlier, like the more we shut that voice down, and we have these ego voices that say like you can't or you won't, and there's no self-trust and there's no self-love, like what we're getting out of it is that we get to reinforce that story, and we get to be right, you know?
What part of ourself then is the one that is kind of talking nasty to us? Is that the ego? Is that
I
wh-
mean, I think it is. I think it's the ego trying to keep us the same, and
mm,
this is a big part of what I talk to clients about, what my job at the institute, like I really believe that our thinking mind will do everything it can to keep us from making change. And then our biological impulse matches that because, like, when we were cavemen and women, we were supposed to stay safe, and like change was bad, and, like
right.
risk wasn't good. Like you'd literally just die. So, we create these fear responses with our thinking brain, and then adrenaline kicks in, and we're like, oh, that must be really bad. I'm not going to do it. And these patterns just like keep us in this funk. It's like, have you ever been so over talking about a goal that it just made you sad? Like no
Mm,
action was taken, and the more you talk about it, it's just like really bringing you down, because like you've outgrown the talking cerebral aspect of this goal. Like you're supposed to be taking action, and you're getting in your own way. And it's not your fault. Like your brain wants you to stay the same, your body wants you to stay safe, but like, I don't know. That's where self-trust and self-love are so important in those processes because like you have to be like, well, I know I'm smart enough. My favorite mantra is I can do hard things. It's like so simple, but like, like, hey, I got this.
I can do hard things. That's right,
Yeah.
I can.
Oh, I can't. Yeah. My brain is really getting in the way here. Okay.
So let's go back in your story.
Oh,
So
yeah.
there you are. You're 13 years old, and you're kind of freaking out that you're gaining the naturally occurring puberty weight that we're all supposed to gain.
Yeah.
They're all women are supposed to gain at that age. Men have different changes. God bless them. I think they like gain a bunch of muscle. Um,
Right. Their voice drops. They're like, this is
right?
cool.
Yeah, they get all the cool puberty changes.
Right. Exactly.
We bleed, it's where
Oh
we
my God.
we
I know.
hurt, we gain weight, like what's up with that? So anyway, so there you are. And what kind of, just to share with us, like what kind of disordered eating did you develop? Was it that you became super restrictive, or did you binge
Yeah.
and purge? How did that
It was
manifest for you?
so restrictive, like
Mm-hmm.
so anorexic. And
Mm.
I think I think it probably stems from probably a moment, before I really wanted to lose weight or anything like that. I think it, and maybe other women would identify with this, but like, in a wonderful effort to keep young adolescent women safe and, for lack of a better word, like not sexualized, like we stay hidden, like we're covered up, which is good. Like if you're 13 and you're developing, you know, boobs and, you're getting curvier, like that should definitely not be looked at as like, yeah, girl, there's like really there's like
Right.
a specific type of way that we need to be encouraging a positive image of self that's just about health. And I
Yeah.
think that that's challenging for parents who are like, oh my God, this girl's got boobs already. Like, I don't know that there are a lot of tools for parents
Hmm.
to really celebrate it in a way that they like know how to navigate, if that makes sense.
Exactly. That's such a good point. Like, how do you celebrate, puberty that sometimes for women is starting at 9,
Right.
and but without sexualizing,
Yeah.
right? How do you, it's like, yay, you're growing hips, and you're getting curvy, and now you're
Right.
fertile.
Right.
But this isn't about sex, and stop looking at boys.
Right, exactly, exactly. Like, what is I don't have children yet, thank goodness. I don't know the answer to that question. But I do know, I feel like with this type of dialogue and moving into a space where we can talk about body issues and values and sexuality and all of that, I feel like we can figure that out so
Hmm.
that the impulse to be small and hide is kind of diminishing for our young women, if that makes sense.
Well, I think the answer might lie in helping the girl to look at what it's like to be a healthy woman. And it's
Yeah.
just like, this is, you're growing into a woman, you're growing your woman body.
Right.
And
Right.
this is the fun transition phase, and that's okay. And it's where you are
Right.
is okay. And just keep telling them, this is where you are is okay. And now we need to embrace eating in a way that's like super healthy.
Right.
Because now, I mean, what comes out of anorexia, unfortunately, is starving the body of nutrition, and you develop
Mhm.
hormone issues, and then hormone issues can lead to brain fog, and then that leads to like lower grades, and then that just, I mean, I'm not saying that happened to you, we're going to hear what happened to you,
Mhm.
but then that leads to even lower self-confidence, and
Totally.
and less self-trust and self-love, and so it's just this vicious cycle. So
Yeah.
what happened? Can you share your story, and to the point where you um like, how did you find healing, and what led you to find holistic health?
Well, I would say it was real honestly, it was through my studies at IIN that I actually learned what it meant to be nourished and have a relationship with my body that wasn't just like, my pants are tight today. I'm upset. My pants feel great today. Now I'm a happy person. You know what I mean? It's like looking back, I didn't have a relationship with my body outside of what I deemed aesthetically pleasing, if that makes sense. And
Hmm.
it wasn't until, like I told you, I did the course because I was like, I'll lose weight. And also, I mean, there were other reasons, I needed something in my life that I could commit to. Um, and it's interesting, like you can have a goal, and even in health coaching, like a client could come to you with a goal that's really, I don't know, kind of base level. Someone has acne, someone wants to lose weight, whatever it is. Sometimes, and most often, it's a physical reason. Same with my reason for wanting to educate myself was this like physical appearance nonsense. And what you come to find is that through a commitment to growth, when you commit yourself to a process that's really challenging, you get to like the heart of what was actually dying to come out. And for
Mm.
me, that was this really binary and disordered mindset around nourishment.
When did you study at IIN?
I did the course between November 2016 and 2017.
Oh, oh, that was recent.
Yeah.
So let's see. So you took it after me then?
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did it. Gosh, was it September? Now I'm forgetting. It's either August or September of 2016 is when I started. So I don't.
Oh,
I
yeah. So I'm just a month after you.
yeah. Yeah, so or
That's
1 or 2 months after. I mean, it was like I was thinking you're like, "I've been in IN since 2008." Like, I don't know.
oh,
That's so cool though. It's really fresh in our minds, right?
yeah, for sure.
So before IIN though, because like so really it's been recent that during the health coach training program that you healed that relationship you have with yourself and with your eating disorder or your disordered eating. I like how you said that. Because it's not like having a diagnosis own you.
Right.
It's just it's a behavior, and we need to heal the internal dialogue and belief system that is creating that behavior, right?
Totally. Yeah, and part of my story is that I got a lot of like attention for looking that way. People started to be like, "Oh, you're so thin and you look so great." And I was always in theater. 13 was also the age. Oh my god, I never even actually put this together, but when I was 13, I was in a play and I played like an 8-year-old, so they taped my boobs down. I didn't even remember that part. Whoa. Wow.
Yeah, I bet
So
that
yeah,
was really like super self-conscious there.
yeah, I was like, "Oh, these things are bad." Gotta hide these things. But
Seriously.
yeah. And so with theater, you're being judged on how you look. And I have a lot of girlfriends who are coming out of that phase. And we all agree, like, the pressure is to be small and to be thin. So really being able to step away from that world also has been incredibly important for me.
Hmm. So that's a good point. Sometimes we need to step away from environments that aren't
Mhm,
supporting us right now. Doesn't
mhm,
mean you can't, you know, go back and hang out with those people or be part of that, in the future. But when we're healing
mhm.
a belief system about ourselves, if we're around certain friends that we just realize like are reinforcing our negative self-talk, maybe we just need to like give some space temporarily, right?
Right. Right. And boundaries. Oh my gosh, boundaries.
Now, boundaries, that's like a whole rabbit hole.
I know.
Can you explain what boundaries are like in the context that you're discussing? Can you explain what boundaries are and some ways that our listeners could start reinforcing them?
Well, I think, to go back to our chat about the dual conversation in our brain, you know what I mean? This like kind voice and this sort of ego driven, like mean voice. Think of those as a person or a relationship that you have that you would be like, you know what? I close the door on this person. Um, you're not a good friend to me right now. And, just like in meditation, letting things pass, but really knowing like that's not you. And you need to acknowledge that voice and just say, you're a part of me, but you're not me. You are not who I am, and I'm choosing not to listen to you,
Mm-hmm.
right? I choose a boundary. And also, if you're around people who are obsessed with a diet, or they're like, oh, I skipped my workout again, or oh, I hate my job, or just like negative people, they come in and out of your life. Know that you don't have to match. I feel like a lot of times we subconsciously are like, oh, I'm going to match you, and now we have this funny rapport, and yeah, we're like
Right.
griping about XYZ. Like, that is not a choice you have to make. With that, you don't have to match everyone around you.
Yeah. You can actually play a fun game because, like, people will do that. Will try to start complaining to try to get you to complain with them
Right.
or start, and it just feels so gross. It feels like high school again, where it's like starting to make fun of one of your, like, one friend is trying to get you to make fun of another friend behind her back, and it's just this is
Right.
catty,
Mhm.
um and it actually lowers our vibration.
Oh,
It just
absolutely.
it sucks the energy out of us. And I like to play around with people who complain. I like to, like, mess with them. And as long as, I can still gain rapport, I'll say things like, like, what really great happened today. I
Right.
The other day I did that with someone, and I mean, he was really receptive, but I'm like, he was telling me, like, how much he hates living in Seattle. Like, he's a country boy, and it's
Mhm.
not like any city he'd start complaining about. And
Sure.
he would come over for lunch, and I really like him, and him and his girlfriend are wonderful people, really great energy, like, just good people. But you could tell, like, he unconsciously started to want to start complaining, like,
Mhm.
he just said, like, I'm a country boy. I really, you could just hear, like, we could have gone down that road about, oh yeah, the traffic and the da 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 da, and just been like, like, a whole thing could have, complaining could have taken over. And
Right.
I use sort of something that Joshua Rosenthal taught us in IIN, sort of the, like, what's new and good,
Yes,
that
I love
question.
that.
And I kind of turned that around and I said, um, since moving to Seattle, what surprised you that you really enjoy about living there? And it stumped him. Like, he was kind of like, and it just
Ooh.
it took him a while. And then he goes, well, I don't know if it surprised me, but I really like, and then he started listing all these things that he hadn't thought of how much he liked. And then we just kept
Oh,
talking about that.
that's
And
awesome.
that made the conversation fun and uplifting and beautiful, right? And so I think we can take people who, I'm not saying that necessarily he's the kind of person that complains, but those people in our life who kind of pull us down by
Mhm.
complaining all the time. If we can
Right.
start to ask them these questions that kind of get them thinking, like, well, what happened that you really were surprised that you enjoyed about that? And then
Right.
just keep asking those questions, we can start to get them out of that negative behavior.
Mhm.
Because if they just keep that negative behavior, I mean, that's someone to, unfortunately, give some space, because we don't want to surround ourselves all the time with the people that complain. We want to surround ourselves all the time with the people that lift us up, right? No,
Right.
and it's not that, we all should be like fake positive people. Like, bad stuff happens in the world, but
Right.
there's a big difference between complaining and then actually dealing with an issue. Because it's like, if I came to
Right.
you and said I have a flat tire, I'm not, like, emotional about it. I'm not, like, freaking out. I'm not saying I have a flat tire and that means I won't blah 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 blah. Like, I'm not
Right.
complaining. I would say I have a flat tire, and then we can have a discussion for how to solve it. So if a friend comes
Right.
to you with a problem, and it doesn't need to have emotion. It's, and how can we solve it? Let's take actual steps, or let's at least talk about it. Or maybe I just need to talk about my feelings about, around my flat tire. Listen, kind of bummed me out and I'm sad about it.
Mhm.
And now I'm gonna, okay, now thank you for listening, and now I'm gonna do something about it, right? So we can have these kind of healthy discussions. but it's
Absolutely.
but those friends, that we let in our life, that, or those family members we let in our life that are constantly complaining, it really is, not only is it a total bummer, but in landmark education they say complaining is a form of domination.
Mm.
And so it's, if you let someone complain all the time, it's kind of like they just hijack the conversation and dominate the conversation and become this, like, little energy vampire for your
Mhm.
thoughts.
Mhm.
Um, and that just doesn't serve us. Complaining does, I bet you there's no like major goals or empire that's been built on complaining, you know?
Right, right. Yeah, nothing good ever comes of it. It's like you spiral down, it's poison. And to your point about, being around someone that's negative or complaining, sometimes negativity can be more insidious and like not always obvious. You can kind of gauge if someone's bringing you down. What do you feel like after you've left their presence? If you hang
Mm,
out with someone and you feel drained and depressed and you had, a great morning full of possibility and then suddenly you're like, yeah, life sucks. Like it could be that, they're just like you were saying vibration earlier, like they're maybe operating at a lower vibration and they come from a place of no, where it's really subconscious, but instead of operating from a place where things are possible and things can be easy and things can be fun and like it's
mhm.
not that big a deal, these are all sort of light, uplifting, emotional spaces to live in. And there are people that come from this like, no, never going to happen,
Right.
blah, like, where is possibility? Like, what is that person's perspective of what's possible in life?
Well, that the no friends and family are the ones you don't want to share your unrealized creations with. The creations that you have not yet brought into the physical world. So your dreams and aspirations. Like if the listener out there is going, I'd like to be a health coach and I want to start a career as a health coach, and then they go and tell their friend and their the no friend, and the friend's like, what are you crazy? Like, you can't afford that. You don't have time for
Right,
that. Like, you can't,
right,
you're going to have to like get clients. Like, who's going to hire you? Like, how are you going to make
right.
money doing that? And that's just like, by the
Ah,
end of that 5 minute conversation, you're like, I'm never setting or accomplishing a goal ever in my life,
right,
ever.
right. And like, people do the best they can with the tools they have. And that person is just probably personally a little nervous about your change. And it's not to be like, you're better than them. That's not at all what I'm saying. But like sometimes change in any way can be very frightening for the people around you.
Mhm.
And it's not necessarily their truth, but it's their reaction. Because, like I said earlier, we want things to stay the same. So be it. Like, so help me God, we want it all to be the same all the time. And exactly right. Like, don't go to that person with your very like special, sacred, like probably just budding idea of a goal. Like, you got to water that. You got to set it in the sun. You got to bring it to people who are going to like sing to it and throw loving phrases all over it, you know?
Everyone needs a friend like you. Oh my gosh, I want a friend that's gonna start like singing and dancing with like ribbons and
I'll do that.
sprinklers every time I have a goal.
Call me. I'll come over.
I love it. I love it. So, you're also a certified yoga instructor. Tell us a bit about that, because I find that fascinating. Did you do that after IAN, during, or was that long before IAN?
I did it during, and I never thought that I would do it, honestly. I've, practiced yoga for a long time, for probably, oh wow, like maybe 18 years or something. So honestly, it was like right towards the end, I guess like past the midway point of my year at IAN. And like that's right around the time when the language of the curriculum starts to be like, you're ready. You're ready now. You know what I mean? Like, do it. Why do you hold yourself back? Like, you're ready because that's when you're supposed to start your practice. And so that it was like that headspace, right? That I was in, that I was like, yeah, like I'm a goal crusher. Here we go. So again, all those things we're talking about, like reasons not to be big and take leaps, right? I was like, it's another financial commitment. Like, do I want to do this? Like, holy cow, that seems like so much work. Um, but I just decided that if I'm faced with an option, like two roads, one seems super hard, one seems like pretty safe, I have to do the hard one. Like
Mhm.
that's where growth happens. That's where magic happens. I committed to this space of self improvement and inquiry work and like, you know, being committed to growth. So I was like, okay, I have to do both. I guess I'm doing both. And I opted to do an intensive. It was through a certain style of vinyasa, very hot and very rigorous.
Very
and
sweaty.
very sweaty. People were drinking Pedialyte
Oh
because
my
they were
gosh.
sweating so much. Yeah, it was intense. But, it was so important for me to do because part of what was making me very nervous to start a health coaching practice was just like a little bit of self doubt. Okay, like a lot of bit of self doubt. And I committed to the goal and I was in it and I was like able to take clients, but I was just like, should I? Am I ready? And adding this other bit of inquiry work surrounding like the story that I carry started to illuminate like, wow, how I am with coaching, how I am with food, how I am with money, how I am with goals is very obsessive but fearful. Like I
Mm.
obsess, like I think I'm going to obsess enough to just make it happen and materialize. And nothing gets done in that space, you know? So I think it was just the fact that they were together and the sort of spiritual practice that you're encouraged to have as a human in this world, but also is talked about in the IIN course. Just everything kind of started to click, and but I would say going through the yoga teacher training deepened my practice a lot and deepened my spiritual practice. It's like, how do I find meditation in things that feel really challenging? Or how do I honor my breath work when the train is delayed for 45 minutes and I'm really pissed? You know what I mean? I literally today was like doing breath work on the platform and I was shooting lasers out of my eyes. And I'm sure people were like, that person is psychotic. What is happening over there? So,
It's totally, and it's so funny because I was stuck in traffic, like, you didn't know this, but, like, you thought you were late for the appointment, and
right?
no, you were not late. I was stuck in traffic, and I got home and immediately Skyped you, and you thought you were late, and I was like, "It's okay, I was in traffic, everything's fine." Like, it's just
Oh
like
man.
the way life works is it kinda clicks, like, when things start to click, everything you can kinda look back and go, "Let's just learn from the past, and
Yeah.
everything's really where we're meant to be." I like how you, had that personal observation. I think it's really hard to get into our own blind spots about ourselves, and that was very vulnerable of you to share and to see that how you are around money, around dieting and food and body image and career, around all of that, you realize your default is you get in that space of obsession and fear.
Hmm.
um and that you acknowledge that you need to get into that space of possibility and love and
Right.
creation to take
Hmm.
action, because when we're in fear mode, we're using the sympathetic nervous system response of fight or flight, which is it's that whole process of the
Right.
autonomic nervous system turns actually shunts blood away from the logic centers of the brain,
Hmm.
and so now you can't even think clearly and you're trying to like accomplish life goals.
Right, right. Yeah, like I forget, I think my yoga teacher said it, it's flight, fight, or frozen.
Yeah.
And mine is always frozen. I'm just like, duh, oh my God.
You're the
Trying to
ostrich.
overthink. I'm
Yeah.
trying to overthink in a state of panic. What's gonna happen? Nothing good.
But that's
But yeah,
so many of us, and so what tools have really helped you to turn off that overthinking and that panic and bring yourself back into possibility, so that you can move forward in a way that you feel really good about yourself?
I really think having spiritual practice, I mean, and that's really different for every person. Um, I am a huge believer in, the laws of the universe and the laws of attraction and vibrational energy. And if listeners, if you guys aren't vibing with that, like whatever higher power is guiding you and giving you purpose, um, it's something to really tap into in those moments. It's always available. And for me, sometimes it's really trying to like physically raise my vibration, and it's
Mhm.
like going from that place of like fear and panic and adrenaline and feeling awful in your head, and sometimes your head hurts and your thoughts are so negative. It's like turn on a beautiful piece of music, turn on a podcast that really inspires you, pull out a book that when you read it, maybe it's not scripture or spiritual words or anything, but something, it could be, I don't know, like Jerry Seinfeld's memoir. I don't know, something that like lifts you up, something that zaps you out of that really dark place. And you can start to feel like a different energetic feeling wash over you.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a cloak that comes over you and you have to actively try to shed it. Um, and for me, that's music. That will be like dancing in my apartment. That'll be like singing alone in my bedroom, um, reading, spiritual books. And I think too, just like go for a walk, you know, and going back to our original conversation about self trust, when you're in these moments, if you can start to have this tiniest little bit of clarity, even if it's just having a negative thought about your body or the food that you just ate or whatever it is, if you can just get a tiny glimpse of self-awareness to say like, whoa, this is that cloak, like this is that voice that I'm trying to get rid of, and I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to go for a walk in the park listening to my favorite album, with my headphones, or I'm going to call my mom who always makes me feel better, or I'm going to journal. Journaling is amazing. Like let that out, let it go, figure out where it's coming from, and like write it in a piece of paper and forget it. You'll instantly feel better. With any
Mm-hmm.
goal, with any habit that you're trying to change, you have to take tiny little steps.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's over time. It steps over time.
Right.
It's not like, come on, I said I was going to run this marathon and it's been a week. Like it's
Right.
it steps over time.
Yeah. And sometimes the step for the very first step, if you have the idea, the universe likes action. Okay, so start talking about it. If you're out there and you want to be a health coach, you want to study nutrition, like just start talking to those people that lift you up, right? Like the people that are going to make the plant grow into this beautiful plant. Sometimes it's talking about it and journaling. It doesn't have to be something that's terrifying. Like just make one action step, and then the next will come and the next will come. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. My husband and I recently revisited this one street in Woodinville. We live just outside of Woodinville, Washington, and we used to have this apartment. Um, and when we had moved there, they had these tiny little, when they first plant trees, and they're like these just tiny little trees. And we
Yes.
we first moved there, these tiny little trees, right? And I haven't been down that street. I mean, we go to Woodinville every day. We haven't been down that one street where our apartment was for a long time because there's no need to drive down that street, but we decided to. And the trees were insane. Like it's only been 4 years since we moved out of that apartment, but the trees were insane. They were just like, I felt almost claustrophobic. They had totally like shot up and gone over the tops. So it's like you're going through a canopy, right? A whole like
Right.
my son used to call it a tree cave, until
Cute.
we taught him the word canopy. And that's what it felt like. And my husband and I were like, we were both talking about it. We're like, can you believe like what 4 years? Because every day we lived there for about 4 years, and so we looked out the window every day at those trees, and it didn't seem like those trees ever grew for the 4 years that we lived there. And then we left for 4 years, came back, and the trees were ginormous. And of course, they'd been growing the whole time, right?
Mhm.
And it's just to that point that when we're looking at something every day, it doesn't seem to shift, right?
Right,
But
right,
we have to trust, and that's part of the self-trust. We have to trust ourselves to continue on and recommit and continue to recommit to our goals, and take those baby steps, and know that like, look back at your life 4 years ago.
right.
No matter whether who you are in life, your life is totally different. Like our life really does. I mean, maybe you still have the same job, maybe like, a lot of things are the same, but you're a different person. Like most of your cells have completely changed.
Mhm.
I think it takes 7 years for this whole skeletal system to change, but other than that, like all your soft tissue is, you have new molecules in your body,
Right, right,
and you're a new person, and you've had 4 years of experience. So I just imagine, like, I visualize in 4 years, like, who am I in 4 years?
right.
And I think that we can take that moment, like you said, self journal, but take that moment to imagine like the best version of ourselves in 4 years.
Totally.
And it might even scare us or like excite us, or like, you might not know, how am I going to achieve that? Like, let's say you're the perfect weight, or you're the perfect health, or you have the career of your dreams, or you have children now, or you have the husband or the wife of your dreams, like whatever it is that you kind of would love to achieve in the next 4 years. And then just take time to visualize the absolute like best version of yourself in 4 years, and know that just like those trees, that those little steps that you take every day, 365 times 4,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you are can totally transform your life. Like, so Katie, I want to know, um you went from being someone who had disordered eating. Were there any other health issues that you faced, that you resolved through, while you studied at IAN?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of digestive issues, obviously, from eating like low fat dairy and lunch meat and like, being basically like living on a very 90s low carbohydrate diet. You know what I mean? That I learned when I was 13. That was always like my safety spot where I was like, this
Mm,
works. So a lot of gut health issues. And I think the tools I gained from my professional training at IAN was like, we got to listen to our bodies, man. Like, we have every tool. The body is clamoring constantly with biofeedback. And it is up to us to listen. And my sister-in-law is this amazing raw vegan chef. And like, I was like, oh, that's the picture of health. Like, I have to be her.
mm.
But that type of lifestyle doesn't work for my digestive tract. Maybe I just ruined it over like 20 years, but like it just doesn't work for me. Like I don't digest that food very well.
I'm laughing because I'm like transitioning to raw vegan right now,
Oh,
and so I'm watching all these really great examples on like Instagram and YouTube. And this one guy, he's called Raw Boy, or the Raw Boy, but he
okay.
talks about, and he goes from like being just regular vegetarian to vegan to raw vegan. He kind of goes like back and forth. And he says just like it takes a month, like of eating raw broccoli, it takes 1 month for you to stop having gas. Like, you will think there's
Whoa.
something seriously wrong with you. Like, you'll eat some raw broccoli, and for the next day you're like propelled by methane. Like, you are
Yeah.
um and it just that's he goes, that's just how it is. Like, everyone who is transitioning to raw vegan, you will spend the first month having the worst gas and bloating for a month, and then all of a sudden it just clears up, and you can digest broccoli raw, and it's like no problem. And I thought that was really interesting because a lot of people say, "Oh, my body can't handle it." And it's like it's just this like kind of this gauntlet that you have to go through if you want to be raw
Totally.
vegan. And I'm not saying it's like the healthiest diet for everyone, but it's just funny that it does take creating like this iron stomach, of this iron digestive tract, right?
Right. 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 And like I don't know that I have it yet. Like I learned, to buy really great probiotics and prebiotics. I had no idea what a prebiotic was and how to listen for symptoms of like celiac and leaky gut and all of
Mm.
these tools and these cues, right? That I was just like, well, if I'm thin, you know what I mean? It goes back to that narrative. And so having my eyes really open and say, like, no, my body, like, I should feel happiness. Dopamine and serotonin are made in your gut, and your gut is wrecked. Like, yeah, you're going to feel like foggy and depressed all the time.
Isn't
So,
that frustrating that if someone goes to the MD with depression and they're put on a drug, meanwhile, I mean, wouldn't you love it if the MD said, "Hey, you know what? All your like happy like neurochemicals are actually like, if we help you have better digestion, you're gonna start to feel happy." Like, isn't that
yeah,
amazing?
yeah,
And this information's out there, but unfortunately, the way the MDs are not trained. This is why health coaches are so important. And in fact, and I want you to talk about this in like later in the episode, but health coaches are being hired by MDs' offices because
right,
there's a huge demand. People are, and this is since like, thank God for Oprah and Dr. Oz, but this
right.
has kind of opened people's eyes to like, hey, wait a second, my MD could teach me how to eat. And then they're going to their medical doctor like, they only have 15 minutes with their medical doctor. The medical doctor goes, "Well, I don't I don't have that training, you know, and so instead
Right.
of, and then I've actually heard medical doctors tell me that they've been losing clients, like, or losing patients. Their patients will choose another doctor that maybe
Mhm.
has functional medicine,
Right.
or has a health coach in their office because they
Right.
want more than a prescription pad. They
Right.
want the support around nutrition. And so now medical doctors are like, okay, well, we need to start hiring health coaches so that we can really
Right.
support, because it's the fuel of our body. Like, we're
Right.
not drug deficient, we're nutrient
Right.
deficient.
Right. Right. Amen. It's amazing that nutrition is like one tiny rubric in all of med school. And the modern healthcare system is not set up for someone to be able to go to their doctor and sit with them for an hour plus every other week and talk about stress and sugar. It's like there's no room for that. Like we needed an entire overhaul and it's going to take so long. And in the meantime, like health coaches, yeah, like they're being hired left and right. Functional medicine practices, doctors' offices, chiropractic offices, you know, people are clamoring for accountability and mentorship.
Mm. So there's so much I know that you could probably talk about in terms of how what you learned during your year-long IIN health coach training program. Is there anything that stands out in your mind right now that was like, what was sort of the biggest aha that you learned, or like this biggest breakthrough that you learned while you went through in the Institute for Integrative Nutrition's health coach training program?
That there isn't a one size fits all approach to wellness and
Mm-hmm.
to nutrition. And that's true with exercise, that is true with spiritual practice, that's true with self care. Like, we are not facsimiles of one another, like clamoring for the light bulb. You know what I mean? Like, once we just figure out that we all need to do this one thing, it's not that way. And I think part of having a disordered mindset around body image is that you're looking for perfection. And for me, that was always like, what's the next fad? Like, what's the next fad diet? What's the next fad exercise? And I would look to people who were, yeah, maybe marathon runners, or I mentioned my beautiful sister in law, being like, they have the ticket, like, they have it figured out. And if I could just figure this out, like, if I could just be good enough and smart enough to get the perfect answer, then like I'd be worthy and I'd be good and I'd be healthy. But it's not even about like mapping out your perfect, nutritional protocol, because that's going to ebb and flow throughout your life. The key is not a perfect answer. The key is like learning to question. You know what I mean? Learning how to question and then listen and take the feedback. And then when something needs to shift, like learn how to question again and take that feedback. I hate running. I tried running forever. I hate it. I have the shortest legs you've ever seen. Like, it just didn't work. So, once I got over being like, I guess I have to be a runner, like, no, we're all different. And I know that sounds pretty elementary. And I'm sure some of your listeners are like, no, duh, we're all really different. But like to really like have that in the seat of your heart that like I'm good enough as is and I have every tool I need to heal, that's really profound.
And the tool being, if I don't have the tool, I know how to go get it. I know how
Exactly.
to look and ask and research and, dive into this, and, have that confidence that you will find the answer. The body has an innate ability to heal itself. And
Yeah.
and we might have complex things going on, but the
Right.
body wants to heal itself, and as long as we keep seeking how to nourish and
Hmm.
nutrify and take care of ourselves through diet and environment
Hmm.
and sleep and,
Totally.
emotionally, mentally, physically, energetically, spiritually, if we keep applying all those different areas, then we'll see improvement. Uh and hiring a health coach. Well, I love that you
Right.
mentioned accountability, because you know what? When you know that someone wants to see what you ate, I mean, not that, like, eating is only one piece of the pie in terms of our health, right? Like, but it's important because you can't out exercise a bad way of eating.
Right.
And there's no one diet for everyone, like you said. It's not that I want everyone to be a perfect size 6 or whatever, or
Hmm.
it's about for me, it's like, are you getting 8 cups of vegetables a day? Like
Yeah.
like, if
Yeah.
everyone drank enough water and ate 8 cups of vegetables a day, and that seems totally daunting for people who don't even like iceberg lettuce, but you get there, like, you get to a point, right, where it's just like
Yeah.
you eat your 8 cups of vegetables and you feel amazing, like, me a few years ago could not imagine eating this much vegetables, and now I love it, and today was a big achievement. I got and now I had my son, like, interested in vegetables and, like, totally eating them, and then he went through that weird phase, like, somewhere between 2.5 and 3 where he stopped liking vegetables, and it freaked me out. I was like, "Oh my gosh," and I started, like, imagining the worst case scenarios, like, my son is never gonna eat vegetables again, and he's gonna, like, start eating McDonald's the second he hasn't the second he leaves
Right.
the home and whatever. But today we made a smoothie together and
Oh,
he loved it. And he saw like how much vegetables I put in there, right? And he's just
right.
like he helped me like put all the ingredients in the Vitamix, and he came back for he drank like 3 cups of it. Like he loved it.
Whoa.
He has this little cup that's like, 8 ounces, but and I fill it up like halfway, right? Because
Yeah,
because
yeah.
spilling, because there's like
Right.
this is like blueberries. There's like 2 cups of blueberries in this thing, so it's definitely gonna stain the carpet. But
Right, and his stomach's probably like the size of like half a peach.
right, exactly, because he's 3.
Right.
But he loved it, and I asked him if he wanted to have a smoothie every day, and he's like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "Yes!" I was
Yeah.
giving, like, fist bumps to my husband secretly, behind our toddler's back, like, "This is the best ever." But, it was rocky there for a while, and it's like you just have to, introduce it, and then, like, to your family members, like, just introduce it, see what happens, no pressure. If they
Mhm.
hate it, like, just come back to the conversation again in a few weeks, keep trying, and it'll persevere, especially if
Mhm.
you're committed to it.
Yeah, and your
Um,
palate will change. Just,
exactly.
you have to kind of give that time too. And, like I said earlier, be sweet to yourself. Like, don't beat yourself up if it's really challenging. I hate the word hard, by the way. I hate saying things are hard. Like, it's challenging, but it's good for you, you
But you
know?
said didn't you say you can, what was it? What's your mantra?
I can do hard
You
things.
could do hard things.
That's it.
I love that you're the one that said be sweet to yourself, and I really love that. Because I think that we have all this inner dialogue, and oftentimes we just listen to the negative inner dialogue, but what you're saying is your true self.
Mhm.
Your true self is that little tiny voice that's really sweet to you.
Right, yeah.
And all the negative chatter that pulls you down, that's really not you. Your that's not your higher self.
Mhm.
And that's not, that so we need to be, like you said, be sweet to ourselves. I think that's beautiful. Um tell me about something that really surprised you when you went through IIN's program. What was just like, oh my gosh, like, did you learn something about health or how to be a coach, or what was it that just like really surprised you?
I guess kind of removing this story, this very like cerebral story that if you're an expert and if you're smart, like you have all this information and you just need to like give it, just like share, give everything you can, all the information, all of your expertise, like basically like convince people. That was like my perception of what I needed to be doing in terms of like nutrition and wellness and this like mission that I had. And really, it's like the more you give people space to share and like work something out and talk it out, the more like revelatory these transformations are. And to me, that was just like, oh, it's not about me. Like, it's not about my stuff. It's not about my story. It's not about like me impressing you by like telling you how leaky gut works, like what's going on. You know what I mean? Like, it's not about that. It's really about the other person's story, the other person's journey. And I think I was really surprised at how important it is to just give people space. Like, I'm from the Midwest and like silence makes me uncomfortable. And I want to be like filling in all the gaps, you know what I mean? And overshare. And so that was really surprising, like how affected it is when, someone is trying to articulate a thought or you touch on something that, oh, that was like unexpected, that this person, this client, or like a friend or your mom, you ask the right kind, we call it high mileage questions. Like you ask the right kind of question that has a lot of legs to it, super open ended, touches on something really meaningful. And as that person starts to share, like, don't chime in, don't don't fill the silence, you know, that is so powerful for people to
Hmm.
collect and share and reflect and just like talk it out. That's the key.
Yes. Yeah, I was surprised too about that. I thought health coaching was lecturing people on like eating more vegetables, drinking more
Right.
water, like telling them what they're not doing right.
Right.
And I was surprised at how much health coaching, well, specifically, going to IAN and studying that version of health coaching, right? The integrative nutrition health coaching is counseling, and that's what they actually used to call it, right? They used to call us counselors before they changed it because they're like, oh wait, maybe we're not, we can't call it counseling anymore because
Right.
you have to have like a degree for that, and I don't
Right.
know, some
Licensure.
licensing, and I
Mhm.
get it. Um, and so, but they used, but that's what it is. It's a lot of listening, and for clients, some clients, that's the first time in their life that they've actually had a relationship in which someone is creating a loving space for
Mhm.
them to just be and talk
Mhm.
and work through stuff and share their feelings and share what's going on, with no judgment,
Right.
a
Right,
supportive
because
environment.
yeah, and like we were saying earlier, whatever goal someone has to begin with, it's enough to get them in the door. It's enough to get a dialogue started. But usually it's something way bigger, something much deeper, a story, a hurt, self esteem stuff, relationship stuff. I mean, it's really big. It's not about 10 pounds. It's like something that they need to really talk out and really, like you said, have a loving, caring voice on the other side of this conversation that, like, hey, yeah, you know how to guide it and you're professional and you like get somewhere with it. You know what I mean? Like you have to have this training to do it effectively, but like what that person really needs is to get at the heart of like what's actually up.
Hmm. So you graduated in November of 2017.
Hmm.
Have you, but halfway through the program you get to start seeing clients. I mean, that's when we're able to start seeing clients. So have you had clients
Yeah.
since? Okay, cool. Can you, I mean, without obviously divulging any personal details like their names, but can you share some stories of success or some stories of what it was like working with clients?
Yeah. So I think what's really fun and I said earlier I believe in the universe and it's like this playful nudge for me when I have a client that comes and their obstacle or their goal or whatever it is they're working through is something that like I also am thinking a lot about or working through. And wouldn't you know it, I'm not lying. I 6 months into the program, as you said, the timing like shakes out. So I was doing this yoga teacher training and I had this great network of women that, I was getting really close with. And I was like, hey, I'm starting my practice. Can we do some consultations, whatever? So I started working with some of these women as my very first clients. The first girl, like younger than me by a lot, was like, I struggle with anorexia. And I was like, oh my God, hello, universe. Hi, I see you there. Gotcha. It's like, it's amazing. These like beautiful synchronicities where you're reminded that, like, whoa, this is exactly what you're supposed to do, that you're where you're supposed to be. So it was great to kind of talk about it through a different voice, like be on the other side of that conversation. Um, Really, really powerful for me as a new, like when, it was like I was nervous. She was like the first girl I worked with, but um, it's amazing. So you kind of act as a magnet, right? For like, you will always keep growing as a coach because you're constantly going to be learning from the person sitting across from you.
Mm. I love that Joshua would say in the program, he would say that you'll be working with a client, and then you'll be taking notes, and they think you're taking notes about them, but what you're really doing is writing down like, "Oh, I need to eat my vegetable," or "I need to eat more
Right,
vegetables," or like you
right,
start,
right, right.
because they start talking, and then all of a sudden you realize like, "Whoa, like they're a mirror of what I'm going
Yes,
through." And I'm not saying like all health coaching is basically the coach like learning from the client, but
No.
it's this great relationship where coaches are always learning and
Yeah.
also the clients get results.
Right, exactly. It's symbiotic. It's really great.
So what
Uh,
kind of results did she get working with you?
well, my biggest part of my practice and my philosophy, and even with my girlfriends and my mom, people I'm not working with professionally, it's always like, how do we remove that voice in our head that we've been talking about so long, but understand our bodies in a new way? Like, her thing was like a thigh gap. And I was like, what does that mean? You know, we had to get to the heart of what it meant to have a thigh gap. And of course, it's like the body image issue, but it also meant that she was in control enough of her diet to remain at a certain size, you know, that it meant that she was smart enough, in control enough, and with it enough to maintain this thigh gap. It was giving her value beyond just like the physical shape. It meant all these other things were in line, all of her other rules she was following. So I think once you can help people unpack their why, clarity can occur. You can start to be like, oh, I mean, all food issues are about control, you know? And so once we kind of see that and say, like, wow, like, where do I feel like I'm not in control at all? She's super young and kind of studying what her parents wanted to. And,
Hmm.
you kind of get to the heart of like, of course, you're overcompensating for control in other areas of your life. You feel like you're not heard. You feel like you don't have any say over really big things in your life. You know, Disordered eating manifests in lots of different ways for lots of different reasons. Um, and when we know our triggers, when we know what we get out of it, you know, and body dysmorphia is another thing altogether because it isn't about physical shape. Like a person could be so small and it's still not enough because you have a dysmorphed vision of your body. And what it really is about is the control. And where else can you be fostering a sense of trust that you don't need to control this? You got it. Like, you don't have to be 10 steps ahead of everything all the time. You're safe. Like, you're safe now. You're worthy of love now. And you don't need to be in control of everything, right? Like, it'll work out. Your body knows what to do. You know what to do. Your spirit knows what to do.
Mm. So I mean that takes time for her to
Oh, for sure.
talk to you, work it out, have those self-revelations, but then also there's a point where rubber hits the road and there's sort of like, okay, now we got to take these aha moments, these very, heady moments and apply them.
Hmm.
What kind of homework did you give her so that she could start to really see like what kind of actionable steps were there for her to take?
Well, like a big trigger for her was being alone in her apartment. I think a lot of times our like monkey mind gets in our way. So leave the space, bring a journal, write about what's coming up for you. What's coming up for you is a great journaling question because you just feel like, oh, I feel fear. I have this memory. You can kind of free form, start to associate things and get a little clarity. So obviously journaling. Um, Trying to eat with people, um, not making food like a shameful space where you're hiding. You know what I mean? Like, bring a picnic somewhere, call a girlfriend, make a meal together. A lot of times that shame piece can be very isolating, right? And
Mm.
also, just talk about it to people you trust, talk about it more, move through it. And also, this is true for everyone. Like, speak in the now. Um, if you fall off track or even on a goal or with your health or whatever, just to speak in the now and be like, whoa, I had this thought, but I'm back. I'm working on it right now in this minute. I'm on it. I'm back. Instead of like,
I fell off the
I'm
wagon and I ate too much yesterday or whatever, like talking
right.
about the past or the past actions.
Yeah. And also like these ing words, like I'm trying to X. It's like, no, I am doing it, right? The trying to or thinking about right? If you're really trying to make progress, you have to speak it into the existence of right in this moment. Like, I am going back to school, or I am healing my eating disorder. I am working on it in this minute.
You know what I really like? And this is something that a past guest recently brought up, but it's speak your identity. So like I am someone who eats healthy. So if someone, let's say a woman is anorexic, she starts saying, I am someone who eats healthy. I'm a
Hmm.
woman who feels healthy. I am, or like you could like someone who's like never run a marathon, just all of a sudden it's like I'm a marathon runner, right? They just start
Right,
saying like, okay, now this is my identity. So now
right,
what would a or I'm a healthy eater.
right,
Like whatever the identity is that you want, instead of being like, this is my goal I'm working towards, because then it's somewhere in this like unknown future that's kind of in question because we've don't have enough self-trust, or we don't trust that we're going to get there. But instead just say it like it's a now. So like I am a healthy eater. And then it
right.
becomes, well, what does a healthy eater eat? And what does a healthy eater do? And like when does a
Hmm.
healthy eater go to sleep? And
Hmm.
that kind of thing. And then then it's like you're like you said, you're speaking in the now. I really like that.
Hmm. Yeah, or just even like, I'm healing. I'm healing because,
Mhm.
you know, eating, yes, exercise, yes, you know, but really there's something in all of us that really needs to heal, you know? And all these other things in our lives are just sort of symptoms of that healing process, you know? So bringing it in the now, bringing it into a space where all of these like modalities of healing, so to speak, can exist, you know? I'm growing, I am healing, I am present, I'm ready, right? I'm ready
Mm.
for change. I'm creating change.
So that was your first client. I love I love that it was someone who was really mirroring what you had just healed.
Yeah.
And so that allows you to um be that loving space for that client. Um do you have any other stories of success you'd like to share with us in terms of like your personal experience as a health coach working with people?
Something that I'm really interested in working on with people, and talking about and guiding them through is their natural ability, right? We all do it. But this quick fix, self soothe mentality, where if we're overly stressed out, if things start to get in our way, we don't feel support, there are these things in our lives that instantly bring a short amount of pleasure. I wouldn't even call it like joy or happiness or contentment. Like, it is just pleasure and it is fleeting, but it does feel really good. But like, what is our response to that? And like, what does that mean for us long term? So if it's Haagen Dazs, if it's like happy hour with your girlfriends, like way too often, you know what I mean? These things can also act as self care.
I see
But when
this on
some,
Facebook a lot. I know I'm probably dating myself because I was just talking to my banker who's younger than me, and she's like, I'm like, I don't even have Facebook. And I know like only like the adults or the old people are on Facebook now, but um
I'm still on Facebook.
okay, good. Okay. Anyway, I'm seeing this on Facebook a lot where a lot of my girlfriends like post their, their giant glass of wine at night, or it's just
Hmm.
wine. Like a lot of women go to gravitate towards the cocktails or the alcohol or the
Right.
wine. And even it's and I'm not saying anything against, medical marijuana, but sometimes that's what people in the states in which it's legal are
Hmm.
moving, or illegal, who knows, are they're going towards drugs or alcohol or sugar or
Hmm.
fried food, right? As that, like you said, that self-soothe. It's kind of like you want your binky if you're
Right.
a kid, right? You want your binky or your comfort, blanket,
Yeah.
your security blanket, and sugar and alcohol become this security blanket. It's or like
Right.
you said, Netflix binge. I totally remember that, having a bad day at work and just coming home and gapping out in front of the TV. Um and not really feel and like wasting 4 hours, like, come home from a hard day at work and just like the entire evening. This is back when I was a bachelorette, like living alone. And
Yeah.
from the time I got home to the time I went to bed, it was either I'd just do video games or TV. And this was when I was feeling bad, like, because if I had a bad day or whatever, had a hard day at work. And then I'd go bed to bed not feeling any better than when I came
Right.
home. But but I was getting something out of the 4 hours of TV. I was getting
Yep.
something like in the being just escaping in the moment, like that temporary dopamine or whatever we get from it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't leave us feeling any better. And if it's alcohol, it really doesn't leave us feeling any better.
Right.
But
Right.
we tend to run to the self-soothing a lot, and this behavior is not forwarding us, and then we end up beating ourselves up, and it goes through this
Yeah.
cycle over and over again. So then we feel kind of guilty and bad. And I started to look at my life going like, wow, I put a lot of time into this like nonsense TV, and I could have accomplished something. I could have like learned like a language, or like learned, like I bought this guitar and then like never ever practiced it because there's TV over there, right? Or
Yeah,
video games or
exactly.
something I can gap out on. So you're right. So what the first thing is, like, admitting. It's sort of like AA, right? The first thing is being it's like
Yes.
admitting there's a problem. Okay, so
Exactly.
we've acknowledged and admitted there's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
What now, why is it that self-soothing behavior is not good, and what should we do instead?
Well, I think like the way to even assess whether it's a problem is exactly what you said. Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't go to happy hour with your girlfriends, or, you had a day you wanted to, I don't know, watch Handmaid's Tale or whatever. I don't care. Like, it's when it's starting to remove you from a larger goal or get in your way or make you feel worse. Like,
Mhm.
that is when you're ready for a new set of habits. And I strongly believe, and I practice this, like, there's a lot of forgiveness and self love in changing your habits, because you have to be like, okay, so I'm here. I got myself here. I forgive myself enough to move on. And then in the next stage, it's like, so what do you fill that time with? You might think that you really, really love, I don't know, 4 hours of TV. Let's use your example. You may be thinking, like, this is what I do. I love it. I get a lot out of it. I just want to do that. And you're not getting anything out of it. It's not making you feel better. Don't beat yourself up. What other aspects of your life could you be nurturing in those moments to get just as much pleasure? You know what I mean? Do you have like a creative hobby that you could do? And in my work with some of my clients, where we're talking a lot about self soothing, it's like you get so much more pleasure, meeting your friends to go see a band, or just other habits that we can make. For me, it was yoga, right? I was one of those people that would be like, oh, work was so hard. I would want to have a cocktail with my husband and watch like Bravo TV. You know what I mean? And I was like, what else can I be doing with this 90 minutes of my life? And sometimes you just have to kind of have that discipline, or a health coach, a mentor, to encourage you, like, say, you're strong, you can do hard things. It's going to feel a little foreign because you've been, participating in this habit for how many years or months, and to not like obsess about it, not be like, I can't stop watching TV, or I can't stop, happy hour after work, like I'm stuck in this cycle. Like, no, you just need a new routine. Like, shake things up. Like, you'll prove to yourself that there are other things that bring you a ton of pleasure, even with coffee, you know, like the mid afternoon slump of coffee, people tend to beat themselves up, or like we have all these emotions around coffee. I drink coffee, I don't have a problem with it. Um, but I think, when you can't sleep at night, or when you're frustrated because what you're ordering is like really, really unhealthy for you, it's all sugar or whatever. Like, when you're over it, when you grow out of it, you have to just like do something else. You can't just sit there and think it away. You can't just like sit on your couch and like stare at the remote and be like, I'm not going to turn it on. Like, get out of there, get out of your routine, like start something new. You know what I mean?
Mhm. I think a good health goal is to, not that you have to quit coffee, but no longer need it.
Right.
Like, I can go days without coffee, I'm like, "Oh, I haven't had a coffee," and so
Mhm.
and I remember you're just reminding me about the afternoon coffee. Like, I don't have afternoon coffees anymore, and there was a time in my life when I wouldn't have functioned if I didn't have,
Mhm.
the afternoon coffee was like I would not get through the day without it. And now, I mean, I only have coffee first thing in the morning and not every day.
I bet
And
your listeners want to know how you did that.
it took me years, and I mean, it's not something that happens overnight. I mean, it's not something you can force because it is really about nutrition. And And for me, it was about, well, how much water am I drinking? Because
Mhm.
that takes a few weeks just to get your water up to the amount that you actually need. Because we're
Yeah.
running around dehydrated,
Mhm.
and then figure out how to get enough vegetables in. I know I come back to vegetables, but like really 8 cups of vegetables or more organic, and get it in your life in a way that's fun, like not like this is not homework because you will not do it for more than a week if it's disgusting to you, but like
Mhm.
something you love. Like cabbage to me tastes like candy, and that wasn't always the case, but
Right.
my palate changed, like you said, my palate really did change. I was
Yeah.
just the other day, all I did was steam broccoli, I didn't add anything, and I was thinking, "I've gotta put salt on this, I've gotta put something on it," and I'm like, I'm just gonna leave it plain and hand it to my son because he like I've got him to like broccoli, that's another mom accomplishment here, and, and I had a bite and I was like, "Whoa!" Like the flavors hit me, and I kind of like cooked it just perfect. It's just has a little bit of crunch, but it's totally not soggy, but it's not like
Yeah.
so crunchy that you're like, that you're gonna
Oh,
be
too.
bloated. Like it was just that perfect amount of steaming. And all I did was steam broccoli, and it was like the flavors hit me. Like I was like, I was sitting there just standing in the kitchen. Like I'm like, I know I'm supposed to like walk to the table and hand this to my son, but I'm like, damn, this tastes good. And you just I think, you wanna get to a point where you have a relationship with healthy food where you actually notice that you enjoy it and it gives you pleasure, and that
Right.
takes time. It's also fun. For me, it's like that one of those, hobbies could be learning how to cook and
Mhm.
learning how to cook healthy food, but that took me years, and it is just, trial and error, and one step at a time, and we'll get there. So, it was really that one step at a time. And by no means I have not accomplished all my health goals. I definitely, am not perfect, but I've healed a lot of things in my past. And just like you just had me realize, like I can't remember the last time I needed an afternoon coffee, but 10 years ago, I could not
Yeah.
survive without it. Like I would
Right.
not function. I would actually I was I was a sales manager for an international training company with my like headset on my head, and I was like
Yeah.
falling asleep, like my head would bang on the desk because I'd fall asleep.
Oh god.
I'd fall asleep in the afternoon if I didn't have, and I actually convinced the office manager that we needed to buy this really expensive espresso machine because at the time I didn't like coffee, but I did lattes. And
Yeah.
so I convinced her we needed this giant, like Italian espresso machine so we could go down to the kitchen in our office and make
Amazing.
espressos every day. And
Amazing.
I didn't survive without them.
Mhm.
I wasn't really into energy drinks or anything, but I did an insane amount of basically espresso shots all day long or lattes. And
Yeah.
that was my life 10 years ago because I was suffering through chronic adrenal fatigue, and
Mhm.
it took me like 7 years to heal that. Um, but it's great. Look back on your life and look back on your life and see what you've accomplished. So I mean, in the moment, it didn't feel like anything was moving, but
Mhm.
7 years goes by and it's like a totally different person.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And also, we have to kind of drop within and like really start to ask like what do I get out of this? For me afternoon coffee is about like whoa, fresh air. Like I'm going to go for a walk. And it's like I could do that and get a tea. I could do that and just go sit in the park and, I could go sit in the park and meditate for 10 minutes since that's a practice I'm trying to develop. But like
Right.
what is it that you like about it? I don't like the coffee. I actually hate the coffee part in the afternoon because I feel like crap trying to fall asleep. But what I need is like that break and being like, okay, I'm gonna go walk around, get fresh air, you know?
Right. Dr. Esselstyn was on my show, and he brought up a really good point. Because he helps people to heal very bad heart disease, like people who are on death's door. They go to the Cleveland Clinic and they're inoperable. They're at the point where they have so many blockages. They're basically the walking dead. They're
Wow.
ticking time bomb and they're about to die. And that's when they're like, I guess I'll give diet a try. You know? Well, I mean, they've been to all the doctors and the
Right.
doctors aren't trained in that. So the doctors
Yeah.
are like, here's another drug and here's another surgery.
Right.
But Dr. Esselstyn's like, "Okay, here's the vegetables." And he gives them such a strict diet that someone who has disordered eating may, recoil in horror. but his
Mhm.
diet like just loads and loads of vegetables, but these vegetables end up like cleaning out the heart, and these people
Yeah.
walk away like he has an amazing success rate. And they did the it's actually the largest study done with this level of severity of disease, of heart disease, and they tracked people for over 12 years, and they saw that like it was like 98% of the people um walked away with absolutely no issues, and
Whoa.
completely cleared out all their blockages, and all and within they even saw results as soon as 1 month. When 1 month that someone had like peripheral neuropathy go away, and like stuff like that, like just really amazing. And it's all diet, and it's all vegetables. But he says, you know what, you have to be 100% compliant because you're using food as medicine. It's like you wouldn't say, okay, I'll take my penicillin today, but I'm not going to take it tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like if you're
Right.
dying of some infection, you're gonna be like, "Well, I'm traveling tomorrow, so I'm not gonna take my life-saving, drug or whatever."
Right.
But he's like, "Food is medicine, and you're eating it 5 times a day for his protocol, and so you're basically
Yeah.
taking medicine 5 times a day." And he goes, "Well, you have to eat this. You have to be really 100% compliant because you're healing a major disease." And in that case, people are like, "Well, what if I wanna go out to a restaurant?" Because most people eat out all the time. And
Right.
he says, "Listen, if you go to a restaurant, you're not going for the food. Like, I know you think you're going for the food, but where you're
Right.
really going for is the company." So he's
Mhm.
like, "You can still stick to your program, just know that you're going for you like, don't eat like, just eat at home and then go there and have a tea," like you said. Like, don't go to a restaurant because 'cause you're, like, really excited about their, like, artery fill like, clogging food. Like,
Right.
go to that restaurant because 'cause you're, like, so excited you're gonna see your best friend and spend a few hours with her. You're really excited about having an intimate, emotional night out with your partner.
Right. Right.
Um, and make it be about that. So like you said, it doesn't have to be about the coffee because it's actually the actions you really like around the afternoon coffee
Mhm.
are getting that break, getting up from your desk, going for a walk, getting some fresh air. I had a my one of my previous bosses in a previous job, she realized the reason why she couldn't quit smoking, and she is highly intelligent, very advanced in terms of personal growth. She actually teaches personal growth for a living.
Oh,
and
cool.
and she realized that that she would work from sun up to sundown because she was from Romania in the time of communism, and so she worked to the bone. Like, she grew up working all the time, because the only way to get out of Romania was, and she was a violinist, the only way to get out of Romania was to do these international competitions, and so she
Oh,
would from sunrise to sunset, even if there's no food, because there's oftentimes no food, and she said that she would, like, live off of ketchup packets and whatever, like,
what?
whatever they could get a hold of, like, it was a crazy she has a crazy story,
Oh,
but
man.
she was, like, 6 years old, traveling internationally, competing and things like that, and so she was able to finally get out of communist Romania because of violin. So
Mhm.
her wire she's hardwired to, like, the second she wakes up to the second she goes to bed, she has to work, and there's no
Right.
self-care, there's no break. But smoking was the hardest thing for her to quit because she realized that smoking was this, like, every hour or every 2 hours she would take 15 minutes. And that
Mhm.
was the what she realized, that when she quit smoking, she would wear her body down, and so she's like, "Well, what do I really the only thing I'm getting out of smoking that's actually healthy is the fact that I'm installing a mandatory get up,
Right.
stretch, go outside, breathe some fresh air." So she had to
Mhm.
figure out how to like set timers on her phone to tell her to go outside without actually having a cigarette, but that to go do that. So what's good about smoking is that it gets you out, gets you moving. It's not that smoking is good for you, but like you said, what's good about the coffee, and I'm not saying coffee is like something everyone has to quit, but it's like when
Right.
we look at these habits in our life, like, what does our life really need? Our life really needs, like, get out, stretch,
Mhm.
take care of yourself, and you could
Yeah.
try doing something different, like try ordering a tea instead of a coffee, or try going to the restaurant and just having a salad because you're there to be with your friends. It's not about the
Yeah.
food. Instead of like worrying about, gosh, that they really don't have anything I can eat, or I just know I'm going to beat myself up tomorrow because I drank too much or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, you can just choose. It's not about what we're consuming, it's about the relationships. So I love
Yeah.
that you brought that up.
And I think too, we all deserve a little bit of credit. Like, how can we exist in this modern world and not assume that, like, food is supposed to make me really happy and, like, I should go to Dunkin' Donuts for that amazing, like, maple donut because we're bombarded constantly
Mhm.
with messages from marketing campaigns and the media, and like our economy is so driven by us just consuming. And
Yep.
so we like subconsciously buy this lie that like, oh, well, I feel sad, like that's going to make me really happy, and like we
Right.
almost go about it really robotically because like we can't help but take these messages in.
And food was
And
a
so
reward. When we
yeah,
were
totally.
kids, I mean, and I'm catching myself as a parent doing this, but when we were kids, our parents were like, "Oh, you did so good. Let's go out for ice cream."
Totally.
Right? And so food was always a reward. And then, of course, then there's the self-soothing aspect of food. And then there's the marketing aspect because we feel very safe around these brands we were marketed to since we
Mhm.
were born. Since when does food need to have a logo?
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. And, part of what I love, about being a health coach and my role and the program is that there's like this spirit of empowerment where you're teaching, well, number one, as a student, like you learn to listen to your body, like I was talking about earlier, but also like you're teaching your client how to listen to their bodies, how to kind of make these decisions, have this self trust. And so, in so many ways, it's about empowerment. Like start to finish, it is about saying like you are enough and you are smart enough. And so when you start like framing your thoughts in that way, you can sort of come out of that like haze and that bubble where you're just like, oh, yes, like fast food is happiness. You know what I mean? Like you can kind of wake up, so to speak. Like wake up and be like, whoa, no, like I'm a smart, like sentient person, and I have say, and I have a brain, and I'm really capable, and like I don't have to buy into all of this, right? Like there's so much more that I can be sort of creating with what I consume, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Now, you shared, so basically you shared your story about how you had disordered eating and
Mhm.
poor digestion as a result of that. That you just how did you discover IIN? How did you discover you wanted to do it? Like what had you discover that it even existed? And then walk us through like how did it take you a long time to sign up? Did you sign up right away? How did that go for you?
Um, so I was doing yoga and I was kind of in this depressed state. Like I wasn't really working on any self development, any personal growth, just kind of in a rut. My husband was in grad school and like our whole life was about that. And not saying that I wouldn't support fully 100%, but I was sort of like draining my well a little bit. And so I was like, well, what makes me feel good every day? Like what's an actionable step I can take every day? And that was going to yoga. So I was going to yoga, and like three women out of the blue within a series of probably 4 weeks mentioned IIN, the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, that they were health coaches, whatever. And I was like, what are y'all talking about? Like, what is this magical place? So it immediately, like, all these like fireworks and confetti was going off like in my spirit and my mind. I was very fearful. It's like a constant practice for me to not operate from a fearful place even now, like it's something I work on. But I had every no story you could imagine. Like the finances, my husband wasn't working, he was in grad school. I was working like 50 hours a week and practicing probably 7 days a week with yoga. So that was 7 hours a week already. It's just like a lot of no. And
No kidding.
I remember I was 28 and I remember just talking to my dad. It's one of those things where I called the school and had a really great conversation, and I like got really close, but I was really scared. So I was like, ugh, like getting in my own way. And I called like my cheerleaders. I called my dad and I was like, it's a year. Should I just wait? And he was like, okay, so in a year you'll be 29. And I was like, yeah. And I wasn't worried about age. I was just like wanting to stall. And he's like, you can be 29 and be a graduate of this program, or you can be 29 and still wanting to do it. Like time's going to go, time will pass. What are you
Mhm.
going to do with it? And he's so profound. And I was like, okay, and it kind of took it as bit of a blessing, and it really kind of rocked me, like, yeah, like action, it's that first sort of budding sort of experience around taking action.
Good job, Dad.
Yeah, right? I know. I really loved that. And I use that often for people when they're afraid to take action.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and even if it's not about age or time or anything, like you have to consider that time will move on and the universe loves action,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to keep chugging along with or without you. And you're going to find yourself in this position or in a brand new position as time has moved on. So, yeah, I mean, I would say it happened pretty quickly, right? Like I called my cheerleader, my dad, and made it happen, and it was exhilarating. It's like when you say I want to do something, you can talk about it for a while, but then when you actually do it, it's like you're in a new universe. Like the world is different. You're like, now I'm doing it. Whoa, like okay, like I can't just talk my way around it anymore. You know what I mean? Like now it's real. And
Mm-hmm.
there's so much power to that, and energy, and just like beautiful sort of magical things start to swirl around, and your life looks different. I often tell people right before they take the leap, it's like, you're sitting on the worst spot. It's like you're standing on a high dive and your toes are over the edge, and you just like have that fear of like, I can't do it. I can't jump. Like that's the worst spot. Like just staring into the abyss, staring at the biggest, scariest jump. But like once you actually leap off and you're in this, let's say, beautiful pool or lake or whatever, you're like, why did I wait? Like this is awesome. The
Right?
the waiting sucked. Like
Yes.
the wondering and the trying to think about jumping, like that's the worst. Just like jump, get in it. It'll
So
start.
you were able, I mean, you were working 50 hours plus you were doing 7 days a week of yoga. You were able to fit it all in. You were able to fit all your studies in.
Mhm.
And helping support your husband through grad school. You're able to financially, talk a bit about that. I think the three biggest concerns, a lot of my listeners have signed up with IIN because I went through the program while I was doing this podcast, and so I talk about it, and
Yeah.
I really believe in it. I would have done IIN for the personal growth alone. Like
Mhm.
you kind of come out of it with like you can come out of this program with a new career, or you
Mhm.
can come out of it just for the personal growth. Like you could do it,
Mhm.
just for your own sake, or just to like have another tool in your tool belt if you're already a practitioner in some way.
Right.
Or you could completely revamp your life and have a new career. Like it's pretty transformational in that way. But a lot of, and I ask listeners, if you have questions, like contact me, and I will call them. I've talked to dozens of the listeners who just want to talk about my experience and just ask like, hey, like I'm a busy mom, or I'm a, I've got, I don't know about money, or I don't know, like could I have a career in this, like. And so the biggest three problems that people face before they sign up, I've found, is I don't know if I can afford it. I don't know if
Mhm.
I have enough time to do it, and not like completely stress myself out. And
Right.
uh are there really jobs out there, like, or like, is it, can I actually build, because some people want to become a health coach so they can grow their own business, be an entrepreneur, and
Yeah.
some want to be a health coach so they can be hired and
Right.
still sort of have that security of a paycheck. So let's walk through those, both from your personal experience, and also then we haven't really touched on, but so you actually now work for IIN in
Yeah.
addition to having your own practice. How did that come about? So we're gonna address all those questions, and but right now I want to ask you, because I'm super curious. So you graduated, you obviously took the leap, you did the program in addition to working and supporting your husband through grad school and doing yoga, and also completing a yoga teacher training program,
Yeah.
which is awesome. And then or sorry, a certified instructor program, which is awesome. And you took on clients, and then how did it work out that you ended up being hired by IIN?
So, right at November 2017, when I was graduating, like taking my final exam, things like that, my husband was putting out feelers because his grad program had ended. He's getting his MFA. So his grad program was ending, and he was putting out all these feelers. And a company in New York offered him a job. And so we were like, okay, end of 2017, I'm like wrapping up this program, taking clients. We're uprooting from, we had lived in Georgia and then, back home in the Midwest. So we're just like, okay, on to another move. And part of what was great about coaching was that I had clients in the Midwest that I carried with me to New York because I could coach them over the phone. So like moving around isn't an issue. So anyway, we moved to New York, and I knew that the Institute only hired graduates. And it's a small, amazing community of people that work for the Institute. We have incredible nutritionists on staff that develop nutrition content and just a really brilliant staff of people. And so I knew, because of the profound experience I had as a student, really removing this big story about identity and food and body issues, that was huge for me. I knew that I wanted to just be a part of it and also to be like at the epicenter, right? As a practicing health coach, like this is where it happens. These are the people I want to be around. This is the vibration I want to be surrounding myself with. So I like totally put all my energy into working at the Institute. And um, my role is I speak with students, and there's no way that I could do that without like this training. You know what I mean? Like to ask questions and talk about goals and talk about fears. I use obviously in my private practice, but in my role, like being able to help someone take a pretty big leap takes a lot of coaching. Like that's what you do as a health coach. You listen to someone's fear and you say like, let's work through that. You know what I mean?
So what was it like going and being interviewed by them, being hired by them? What was that like?
I mean, it was really fun. As I mentioned, there's just a lot of like beautiful souls here, great energy. I realized that everyone everyone on the team, like we all kind of, so many women, right? And when I started to talk a little bit about my body image stuff and my food issues that I got through the program, like we instantly connected. And obviously that wasn't in the interview. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself, but like you kind of feel this like kindred spirit. And it's true for the alumni network, when you speak to a grad, like obviously speaking to you, I know you're a grad, like the way your brain works, I know you're a grad. So there's sort of this kindred feeling on this kinship, right?
So you're saying
And
that the office environment, you feel connected to all of the coworkers that you have?
absolutely,
That's really cool.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Um, and yeah, just being able to be surrounded by like-minded people and in a headspace of, obviously we're all committed to personal growth. You know what I mean? We're like junkies for personal growth. And for me, that was really important being brand new to New York City, which was really intimidating. It can be lonely here in the city, you know what I mean? So having a network of people that really get you, and you're all sort of here to kind of do better in the world and like make the world a better place. And our mission is to create like this ripple effect, right? Where we're changing people's lives through food and wellness. It's like that's a great circle of humans to connect with, like your first month of New York City. You know what I
That's
mean?
so
I feel
cool.
so lucky. Yeah,
That's,
so lucky.
that's really neat. And how long have you worked there now?
Since like January 2017, like right when we got here.
Okay, so wow, it's more than a year.
Yeah, yep.
Nice, nice. And so you've settled in. You've been in New York City for all four seasons.
Yes.
Which wasn't, I guess if you're from the Midwest, it's not that bad.
I mean, it's just different. It's so different. Like they're just as extreme because like my home state's Minnesota and it's really humid and then it's really snowy and like, you get all of it, but you have like a car. So it's like not that hard. So yeah, here you're just like, in the summer, there's like a lot of trash on the sidewalk. And then in the winter, there's like a lot of people on the sidewalk, a lot of snow. So it's just different, you're like really faced with it at all times.
That's cool. So, I just love hearing kind of the pulling back the curtain and hearing what IAN is actually like. To hear that it's authentic, that it's not, I mean, it's not like, you know, they try to put on a persona and then it's really different from the inside, but you pull back the curtain and you see like, no, really, the staff members are really authentically like they're all health coaches and they're all
Yeah.
they practice what they preach. And that when I
Right.
heard how Joshua takes care of all the staff, like that he has a massage
Yeah.
therapist and he has a
Yeah.
chiropractor come into the office and he always has like these free organic snacks available and he
Yes.
has yoga classes for the staff. And so when I heard that
Mhm.
and he does like this annual retreat for the staff and he
Yeah.
really takes care of the staff and the staff obviously in turn take care of all the clients and all the students. Um and that he's creating what we want to see in the world. We want to see
Oh,
all companies do this to, like that self-care should not only start with it with ourselves, but that also wouldn't it be wonderful if all of our managers and all of our employers would want to take care of us as you know as much as we want to take care of ourselves, because it then
yeah.
it fosters this great camaraderie and also create increases productivity.
Yeah, and like, he gives us tools in an office environment. He gives us tools to take care of ourselves, where I feel like it's the opposite in most business settings or, office settings or whatever you want to call it. Like being able to say, this organic lunch is available and massage is available and a chiropractor and a meditation room and a
Oh my gosh,
lactation room.
that's
It's
cool.
like you're giving me all these opportunities to practice self-care and to do what's really good for me. And I feel like so many people, work under fluorescent lights and they have to eat like crappy takeout food and their boss doesn't, honor their sort of need for self-care or just be like, I'm gonna go meditate for 10 minutes. Like, what? I feel like that's just really rare and really beautiful. To be set up to take care of yourself is really important.
So tell me, let's handle these objections, I think, because my goal, I would love to see more health coaches in the world, and I know that a lot of my
Yeah.
listeners listen to the show because they're interested in helping themselves gain health. But
Mm.
a lot of them are interested in getting into the health space. I've received a lot of emails from people going, your show inspires me, and this is something I'm really passionate about, and I'd love to get out of the toxic work environment I'm in and pursue a career in the health space. And
Right.
I think health coaching is the perfect place. It doesn't have to be the place you end like you become a health coach and that's it. You don't do any more, like that's it, right? But I think health coaching for a lot of people can be that stepping stone.
Right.
Especially because maybe you could talk a bit about this, that once you graduate, you actually have a bunch of credits that could be applied to a master's degree, that could be applied to
Mhm.
so much more if you choose to go that route. So
Absolutely.
you could even like if that was one of the sort of dilemmas, like your parents want you to go to college, but you're like, this is what really resonates with you. It's like, hey, I still can, and you can use it to apply to um further your whatever college degree within like the health space. So let's go through, okay, let's go through someone who has an objection or a worry that they don't have enough money to do the health coach training program.
I mean, that is probably the primary one, only because it's really uncomfortable to like invest in yourself or invest in education or really say like I'm going to bite the bullet and put money towards my goal. Like
Mhm.
it's a subconscious fear that like, is my goal worth this money? Am I worth this money? And
Mhm.
we kind of try to talk ourselves out of it because there's a fear response around like ponying up essentially for yourself, right? And being like, this is money well spent on me and my development. It's really hard for a lot of people to say. So I also believe that we let ourselves off the hook in so many ways. And most people find it very like moral to be like, nope, I'm not going to spend that money because it's just not the right time. And I'm not going to do it. And like it's almost like, you get to let yourself off the hook from a goal. And then you also kind of feel like you made like the smarter decision. And to that, I would say, fear is so insidious. and we attach great reasons that really cerebrally make sense to us not to do something that's big and scary. We almost feel more justified, right, when we say it's because of money. But really, it's the easiest thing to attach to. It's the
Mm-hmm.
easiest way to say no. It's the easiest way to let yourself off the hook, you know? Be it the program, be it paying for a yoga class, whatever it is, like notice where else in your life you're using money as a means to let yourself off the hook and not achieve a goal. You know,
Mm.
for I feel like people are finally getting around the idea that like cooking healthy costs more. Like we kind of all are realizing that that's like a lot of BS. But I feel like for so long, like even in the early 2000s, people were just like, nope, that costs too much. It's like, yeah, okay, is that it? Like put a pin in it. It's about money. Like, no, it's about your resistance. We really have to get clear about our resistance in these like really sneaky ways that it shows up.
Okay.
Also, to my point about what's easier, like financially, is it challenging? Yeah. Like I did this, and like I said, my husband wasn't working. That was very challenging, but we got through it.
You did the payment program, the payment plan?
Yeah. Yep.
I did too. I was like, I learned about, I signed up the same day I learned about IIN. Like it was this no brainer for me, but I've obviously talked to my husband about it and he's like, is there a payment plan? I'm like, yeah. He's like, get, his thing is in quote unquote, get the business to pay for it. I mean, we've been self-employed for like almost 10 years now. So, when you say get the business to pay for it, it's essentially like it's a write-off or it's like
Mhm.
it's somehow like less, like it costs less taxes, right? Because it's a
Sure.
business education when you're self-employed is a business expense. But what really impressed me was, and I was talking to Juliet, and
Mhm.
I don't know if you know who
Yeah,
Juliet is.
sure.
Okay, in the
Of
office,
course,
she's amazing.
yeah.
She's been there for like ever, and
Yeah.
it was so funny because when I called up, I was expecting to get someone on the phone. See, I don't know if you've ever been in like a sales pitch that was like. I've called those online colleges where they won't stop calling you because they're like very
Oh,
salesy, or
right.
I've been to a timeshare sales pitch. And so I kind of had my defenses up when I called and got
Yeah.
Juliet on the phone. And she wanted to know what my name was. And I'm like, I'm not gonna give you my name. She's like, what's your email address? I'm like, I'm not gonna give you my email address. And she was like, and the thing is, I was like I was really, I'm not gonna swear, but I was like really mean to her. And I'm not a mean person, but I was like expecting a salesy kind of person. And so I
Yeah.
had my defenses up and she maintained like total professionalism and was super sweet the entire time. And I'm like, listen, I'm not giving you any of my information because I do not want, like, if I decide to not do this, I am not gonna get spammed by you guys. And
Right,
she's
right.
like, okay, I totally understand, no problem. She's like, I just want to know what to call you. I'm like, you don't need to know. And it was so funny because by the end of the conversation, I signed up. And I was not
You're like,
expect I
"That's
mean, I
fun."
wanted it. I was interested, but I was also like, I have questions for you, lady,
Right.
and you got to answer them to me. And what I thought was really interesting was that she said that really she put this so well. She goes, really good students have their if they go on the payment plan, but they have their entire tuition paid off by the time they graduate because you can start seeing clients. You're actually supposed to start seeing clients
Mhm.
within the first 6 months. And so you've got 6 months of working with clients. Even if you do it part-time, you could easily have this paid off.
Oh,
And I
absolutely.
was like, oh, that makes so much sense. And so that just becomes the goal. So really, if you go on the payment plan, you're only your goal isn't to like have to be on the payment plan the entire time. Your goal is to like be on the payment plan until you start getting clients and then that pays for it. Um
Exactly.
so I thought that was really cool, and then it sort of sets you up for success because sometimes we need a little bit of that stick, like I
Oh,
love the carrot and the stick, right? The carrot is like, this infinite world of possibilities where you're like helping people heal themselves and have these wonderful transformations. And then the stick is you have this payment and you got to pay it off. Whip, whip, whip,
yeah. Right,
And
right.
so
Yeah, a
just a
little
little bit of
fire.
stick. Yeah, a little bit of
Of
fire is
course.
good, right? It's
It's
better than
healthy.
it's better than like sitting there eating our Haagen-Dazs watching Hulu all night every night
Right.
for the next 4
Totally.
years.
Totally. Yeah, there has to be like real stakes, There has to be
Yeah.
something that drives you and gets you to kind of push past your fear a little bit. 100%.
Yes, I like it. I like it. So, anything else you want to say about the payment plan or what people should know about it? So let's say they're like, okay, they've acknowledged that okay, I've used money in the past as an excuse to not like put anything into my goals, but now I'm going to work past that. But is there anything like logistical they should understand about it?
I mean, we encourage you to start coaching as an educational tool. We want it to be for your development so you have mentorship, right? While you're still a student. But it is to your advantage, like come into the program with that mindset, just like you said, and make a bigger payment. Pay it off in full. If you sign up like right around your tax time and you want to go on a payment plan for a couple months, like we always encourage you to pay it off. And it's totally celebrated. You know what I mean? That means you're doing really well financially. And sometimes, the reason we have the payment plans is so that if things aren't lining up for you right away, like the stars aren't aligning, like you can still take that action step. You can still start your education. You can still start on this goal. And the other thing is like they're set up because the stars never align. Like you're never going to get struck by lightning and just be like, now is the time. Like
You have to
you,
make it the time.
you have to make it the time and you have to do it.
Yep,
You have to, I can't own this quote, but you have to feel the fear and do it anyway.
that's right. You got it. But you know what? The second you jump, the fear becomes excitement. Like
Yeah,
that's the thing about fear. It's like an illusion, and then again, that's just like Dune. Remember that I'm into sci-fi, but fear
yeah,
is an illusion because once you jump and do it, and you're like, whoa, there was nothing life threatening about this. Like I'm safe. Like I might have fear, but I'm completely safe. And then all of a sudden you realize that fear turns into excitement, and you're like, wow, it's like exhilarating because now you've gotten out of that comfort zone and you're
right,
you're like
exactly.
accomplishing your dreams, and then plus the second you start taking the program, like I basically tell people to have the tissues. Like for the first 2 weeks I did nothing but cry, like these motivational inspirational tears of joy,
Totally,
right? Not tears of
totally,
suffering, but like just uncontrollable weeping of happiness
totally.
occurred when I was when I the first few weeks of the course,
Well, it's that
because
empowering
yeah,
headspace.
exactly.
You're like, I don't have this type of thinking worked out yet. Like, what do you mean I can do it? What do you mean I have all this possibility and potential? You know what I mean? You're like, it is so emotional to finally start rewiring your brain a bit.
Mm. And also, what I loved is that like a lot of people don't have a bunch of friends who are like minded in terms of health and
Right,
wellness and
right.
emotional health, and nurturing and self-love. And so not all of us are blessed with this like really wonderful network of friends that are all about self-improvement and self-growth, and sometimes we feel
Totally.
like the black sheep of our like friend network or the black sheep of our family. And then you get into the first few weeks, even the first few videos within your training, and you realize like wow, there's like 2,000 people in my class because it's all online. But
Right,
you're in like a group, and you can communicate, but also then you're watching these videos and you're like, I am among people who think exactly like me.
right.
I'm among like-minded people, and it's such a cool feeling to know that you could be part of this collective hive of health coaches that
Yeah, you're
no
part of a
matter
community.
yeah, no matter where you're from around the world, like you all end up having this very similar background, and it's really cool. It's like you've met your sisters.
Right,
And yeah,
exactly.
and the odd brother. There's a few men in there, and you're like,
Yeah,
yes, yes, men.
yeah,
For sure.
yeah.
Men need to be health coaches too. But a
He's like a
lot of
really
women.
emotionally intelligent
Right?
brother.
Highly evolved men. I love men that jump into health coaching because
Me too.
they're like so highly evolved. And of course, every man that listens to this show is incredibly evolved.
Right.
And I've all my listeners are incredibly intelligent. So of course they have to
Totally.
be to listen to
Right.
us.
Yeah. Talk about the universe and goal
Right,
setting and
right.
identity. Like, what?
So great. So that's money. And what about time? I think that's a big one because
I mean,
everyone has a job and everyone has a family and everyone has a life, and we all are born with the same amount of time. Like we all have
yeah.
24 hours in a day, but I think that people are afraid that they'll especially those who procrastinate, are afraid that they'll somehow get behind in their studies, or
Mhm.
especially because they're investing money in it.
Right.
So what does it take time wise to get to work through this program?
Well, it's part-time. It's like 5 to 8 hours, and it's all, virtual and accessible 24/7. And I would say, for students who are really worried about time, it's like it's available offline. It's mostly pre-recorded lectures. So, if you don't want to take time away from, maybe you have like an hour of treadmill time that's like yours, like listen or watch your lecture while you're doing that. You can multitask. You can have it on while you're cooking your family dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and also, you know, I keep going back to this like fear response and how do we deflate it? But it's like, what are we afraid of about running out of time? Is it the discomfort? Is it that we're already setting ourselves up to sort of let ourselves down? Like, where is that fear coming from, and how do you address it head on? Like, yeah, it's going to take time. It's going to get uncomfortable. It's going to be challenging. But after you graduate, those 5 to 8 hours that you've spent, really, maybe you have to get super creative. But isn't that a muscle you want to flex? Isn't this something for your development and your growth? And, we have students who say, like, well, that was great. I just learned how to set aside 8 hours a week for my business. It's like first for school and now for business. It's like you're
Right.
learning a new muscle.
And you brought up self-soothe. I thought it was really fun because you could take all that time that you invest in your self-soothing, like
Hmm.
watching, like either going out for drinks and watching Netflix and eating your
Hmm.
Haagen-Dazs, whatever we do to self-soothe. Take all that time and do the health coach training program, and that would pretty much.
Totally.
I loved how easily it fit into my life because when you commute, you can listen, even if they're video lectures, you can just listen to them because
Totally.
most of the video lectures come with the PDF slides. And
Yep.
so I say, look at the slides before and after you watch the video. And then you can watch that. Some of the videos are 5 minutes long, some of them are 45 minutes long, but you can listen to that lecture while you're driving. I often had it on the speakers while I cooked. And my husband, who is it's we have a sort of open concept house, and so he's in the other room, but he can clear. I kind of made sure it was turned up loud enough for him to hear, or I'd put it on the TV. I'd hook up the laptop to the TV before I sold the TV. I sold our TV the beginning of this year. Like, we don't have TV. That was a big New
Nice.
Year's goal. But before, when we had this giant TV, I'd hook up, Joshua would be like literally 6 feet tall. And
I
I'd
did the
have
same
that
thing.
blasting through the house. And so my husband loved it. And he would just like he'd start picking up on stuff. And that's another thing I noticed, that when my listeners who join, who do the program and then, keep in touch with me, they say that their partner loves it, that their partner ends up like loving, like learning from the program
Yep.
also, because your partner starts to pick stuff up too, if you
Oh,
especially if you
absolutely.
have it like blasting like on the speakers or on the TV or even on your laptop loud enough. And so I do it when I was cooking, I do it when I was exercising, I do it when I was commuting. I very rarely just like sat at, I mean, I did do this, but I rarely sat at home as like, okay, this afternoon is dedicated to IIN. Like, most of the time it was when I was on the go, and I would fill it into my life, like, already. Like, my life is already going to the gym, my life is already driving, my life is already
Yep.
cooking or cleaning, and I could do it.
Totally.
Yeah, and so, but it does take that into it being intentional, basically. But what's great about it is that I loved it, and I loved every video, and I say to people, like, if you love TED Talks or you love my show, then you would absolutely love all the content in IIN, because it's
Totally.
not like high school. Like, if you hated high school, it is not like high school. It's like how you wanted high school to be.
Exactly, exactly, and it's very experiential,
Mhm.
sometimes it's not gonna be 8 hours of lectures. We have a lot of the program is designed to, like, facilitate the growth of the student. So maybe you're experimenting with dietary theories, or kind of trying on a new, spiritual practice, or investigating new modes of self-care. There's a lot of inquiry work, there's a lot of, like, dissecting how we set goals, like, what patterns do we have? You know what I mean? Like, you're going to grow so much from this, and that's part and parcel to the nature of the homework. You know,
Mhm.
have to sort of feel confident speaking to holistic nutrition, feel confident guiding someone's transformation, and feel confident running a business. Essentially, so that takes
Mhm.
growth, and it you can't learn that all from videos. Like, you have to get messy in your own life, and we give you all the prompts and homework. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. And so, talk a bit about. I think that's the third biggest issue is will you set me up for success? You know, you said
Absolutely.
talk about business, like how does a student, like how or a potential student, so a listener who's interested in becoming a health coach or going through your program, how does IIN, how does their health coach training program set them up to be a success as a health coach?
I think the biggest thing is that the pulse of it from day one is meant to change your mind about what's possible. So you're sort of reframing your thought process, number one. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
There can be limiting beliefs going into this. Most people do. Like, that's just how we kind of survive as adults, you know? So, number one, like, yeah, you're supposed to kind of shed that belief system that it's going to be hard, that making money is difficult, right? Like, these are belief systems that you need to work through and shed. They're not working anymore. And then from there, really gaining this perspective of like what you want. Like, how do you, saying like, I want to love my job. Like, that's a great goal, but like, what does it mean? Like, how do things start to conspire in your favor, and what action steps can you actually take? So you have to get really, really clear on what you want. And again, it's like facilitated in the program. You getting clear about your brand, like all of that, what kind of client you want to attract, what types of transformations do you want to lead. And then to your question earlier, like, do you want to work in a doctor's office? Okay, so we teach you how to make those connections and get those referrals, and even how to approach a doctor and say, like, this is my training.
Mhm.
And, the fact that it's really designed for students to start coaching while they're still students, it's for your growth as a health coach, right? It's so that you can go to your own health coach in a small group setting and say, like, I'm really nervous, or, this consultation felt a little weird. Can you help? Or, I'm attracting a certain type of client. We want you to have all of that done while you have access to help and support, so that you understand what it means to be a business owner at the end of this. And I always tell people, like, with life, with school, with, our coaching sessions, it's like you have to put the work in. There is no magic pill, there is no magic piece of paper, there's no magic credential. Like, you have to absolutely set your intentions and make those action steps and work for it. And the more you put into it, the more you get out.
Mhm.
And you know, like you were saying, yeah, the most successful graduates are paying back their tuition. That's because they're taking everything we say, right? And they do it, and they're doing the inquiry work. They're trying to release their belief systems, and they're developing self trust where they're like, yeah, I'm able to take clients. And of course, like, brass tacks, like marketing, yes, there's training in marketing, and like, how do you do a workshop, how do you do a consultation, how do you run your website, how do you like file with the IRS, like all those like nitty gritty things about running a business. It's all in the program, and it's designed to guide you step by step. Like, yeah, you might not know what it's going to look like right away, but like, do it, do the work, do what we tell you to do, and it'll come
Mhm.
together.
And it's cool that you have contact with the other students so that you can also learn from what they're doing. Their trial and error, and their client getting, their marketing. And
Exactly.
so there's this, you're learning from the program, you're learning from, especially when you end up near the end, you get to do a whole um you get an experience of working with a coaching circle,
Right.
and working with a coach that's a graduate, and you really get to go through and fine tune your business, um and all of sort of your fears and the things that you're coming up against, but the whole
Right.
time that you can communicate with all the student body,
Absolutely.
and that's cool because some of them like take off. Like there were some early bloomers in our program, and they kind of like were already like launching a book, and you know what I mean? Like
That's awesome.
already like hired by a doctor or whatever, already like, they're, and then there's just some early bloomers you can, and then there's sort of that bell curve. And wherever you are is great because if you're a late bloomer, you can learn from what everyone else is doing, and what
Mhm.
all their actionable steps are, and what that sort of led to, whether that worked or not, or so
Mhm.
it is a very experiential program. So where do graduates work when they graduate? Do they now they're an integrative health coach, they can obviously they can become an entrepreneur, and that's what the program really sets them up to do if they
Yeah.
that's what they want. Because they can go on to become chefs, they can go on to publish books, they can go on
Yeah.
to work over Skype and or work, in person with people. They can actually go into clinics and lead workshops. I mean,
Yep.
there's you maybe you could list a few things as an entrepreneur, as a health coach. What are the sort of different avenues? And then let's get into if a health coach wants to be hired.
Yeah. So I think some of the most exciting stuff that's happening right now is when someone takes like a tiny kernel of like what they're interested in, what they bring that's so unique. And like that starts to develop and crystallize through the work of the program. For instance, Jamie Klossner comes to mind. She's this influencer, right? And she loves social media and she has this incredible platform. And she's this like amazing health coach that works with these like brands like Vital Proteins and Hope Hummus and Love Bug Probiotics and like Primal Blueprint. Excuse me, that's a mouthful for me. Primal Blueprint. But like, if you are a person that like you want to video blog and you want to talk about natural beauty products, and if you want to talk about like new products that are coming out and try them on and like be essentially a social media influencer, like that's very feasible and monetizable, right? Like you can monetize that passion if you kind of allow the program to steer it, you know what I mean, and really find your voice and your unique brand. um, Also, just we have a lot of graduates that write for like wellness publications like Shape or Well and Good or Mind Body Green. If you're a great writer and that's something that like really comes to light for you through the program, that's a great way. Now you have your credential. People want to hear what you have to say. And certainly, things beyond being an entrepreneur, like corporate wellness, that's huge, 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 huge. Corporate wellness is incredible. And I get really excited talking about functional medicine doctors and their practices and how they're hiring our graduates because, like you said, early on in our chat, like doctors don't have the time, right, to be
Mhm.
doing the work that health coaches do. So, they specifically are looking for our graduates because it's so important that, yeah, you have the nutritional knowledge, but you have the coaching piece. You know,
Mhm.
it doesn't work for a doctor's practice to be working with the same patient for 6 months and they can't figure out their addiction to sugar. You need a
Right.
trained health coach to like kind of get it there. Like,
Right.
let's get to it. Like, what's holding you back?
Yeah,
So
I just interviewed a naturopath yesterday, so I'm publishing that one in a few weeks because there's some editing that needs to get done. But he said that so his clinic is all online or most of it online. Some people can go see him in person. He's in Boston, but he's a naturopathic physician, and his clinic sees 20,000 patients a year, either online or in person, but he doesn't actually see them. How he set up his business, and he's been in business for about 5 years, and he said in total they've had like a 250,000 people go through their program. Or maybe their program's been a little bit longer than 5 years, but like the last 5 years they've really fine tuned it, and it goes. So a patient comes to them and goes, "Okay, I want to do your program." Let's say it's online, because you see them in person, it's like the same thing. You get sent home a bunch of labs that you do at home, like stool tests and
yeah,
saliva tests and all that, because he wants to rule out all the gut issues. And
yeah,
so you get all these at home, really cool at home tests, and then you send them the labs, and then he looks over all your labs, and then he tells his health coaches, and he's basically hired a bunch of health coaches that are, in his employ, and he
hmm
tells them like, okay, here's the issues we're dealing with. Like, here's what the lab said.
hmm
Go work with these people, and then you just work with the health coach that
yeah,
that you resonate with in his clinic. And then if you have like medical stuff come up, that then the health coach talks to him, and then he talks to the health coach, and so you're dealing like week to week with this health coach, just helping you to shape your habits and your diet. But it's all like monitored by this doctor,
yeah,
in a whole totally holistic way. And he calls it 12 weeks, but I like to call 12 weeks 90 days, because I don't know for why 90 days sounds better than 12 weeks. But anyway, basically in 3 months or so is when people completely, like people who've been on sick forever. Like people who've had like the like Hashimoto's or like IBS or like really bad digestive problems or like just really bad autoimmune problems. Um
Mm-hmm.
or like rheumatoid arthritis, like people who basically been told by their MD they're going to be on drugs the rest of their life and there's nothing they can do about it. And they
Right.
go to him, they get a few of these at-home lab tests, then they're working with one of his health coaches and in 90 days they're a new person. Their
Oh yeah.
digestion is 100% better. They're like off of their medication. They're feeling on top of the world that they've never had as much happiness. That's because again, the gut creates those happy
Yeah.
neuro, chemicals. And that's just one clinic, but imagine like how many health coaches he has in his employ because you end up
Mhm.
spending, maybe a half an hour twice a week with your health coach because health coaches are really hands-on.
Mhm.
um, it's kind of like the nurse to the doctor, right? Like then you spend way
Yeah.
more time with the nurse than you do with the doctor, but you spend a lot
Right.
lot of time with this with the I been working with a nurse for my son recently and it was like the nurse was like, "Okay, this is in the morning you're going to do this with him and this is how you're going to do it." And she was like way more hands-on. The doctor's like, okay, comes in, okay, he has this, goodbye, that's it. But the nurse was like really hands-on and it reminded me of the difference between seeing a health coach and seeing a doctor.
Totally.
In some regards, health coaches are so much more hands-on, but at the same time, they're not there to like just throw information at you and bombard you. They're there to work
Right.
with you, be accountable, help you to create a plan and also to listen so that
Right.
they can create that space so that you can help start to solve the issues because sometimes we've never actually created a space for ourselves to just listen or be listened
Mhm.
to.
Right.
So it's multifaceted. But I wanted to share that because you're saying like, these health coaches are being hired by doctors or
Mhm.
functional medicine practitioners and naturopaths and it's working really well. Like this is
Yeah.
it's really a wonderful relationship because now the doctor sometimes doctors just want to work one-on-one with clients and that's fantastic. And but then they actually then become health coaches themselves. I've interviewed some doctors who basically said to me, I'm not really a doctor anymore. I what my role is health coaching. I was like, and I laugh because I'm like, isn't that funny that like what's needed now more than ever are health coaches?
Right, right. And how beautiful is it that, like, for listeners envisioning themselves in that setting, like part of a bigger medical team, like, yeah, maybe you don't have the means or the time to go spend like 7 years going back to med school, and you can still be part of this like healthcare landscape and preventative healthcare without that. Like, there's a place for you, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? And it's finally within reach for people who believe that food is medicine. Like
Mm.
you can jump in, you can be a part of this. You can be a part of this sort of revolution in preventative care. It's exciting. It's
It's
a really
very
exciting
exciting.
time.
It's really exciting. Any other ways that you've seen graduates like take this and run with it in terms of their career?
Oh my gosh. Well, we have people who start wellness centers. Obviously, that would be, someone's like big hairy goal, right? And you can link up with like other graduates and what is it, big hairy audacious goal. But you can link up with other graduates and you have the means and the support to put your name out there. And once you start to crystallize what your big hairy audacious dream is, that's really exciting in and of itself. And we have people who come from the fitness world. There was one woman, one of our graduates is just written up in Forbes magazine for creating this like fit pregnancy club here in New York City. And it's like her passion was fitness. And then how do you integrate health coaching into that and start a brand? Start a revolution for these pregnant women. Like how cool is that?
That's really
And
cool.
just within any capacity, like how you want to help people, there's a pathway and a door and you just have to kind of open it, you know what I mean? And this guy, I mean, not to sound like so cheesy, but like it does excite me. We're hearing from student success all these stories of people who had pie in the sky dreams of opening a restaurant or like creating a juice brand, or like Purely Elizabeth, she's one of our graduates with her granola. And it's like, if you have a vision out there, like, again, I'm so cheesy, but like I believe in the stuff so much, like if you have a dream, like you can
Mhm.
have it. You have to do the work, but you can have it. And whether it's product development, working for a doctor, working in private practice, writing full time, being a cookbook author, professional chef, like some people just want to go teach people how to cook and cook for the week and clean out their pantry and take them to the grocery store, teach them how to shop, like there's so many things you can do with this.
I love it. What was the graduate that created that the bottled juice company?
Suja, Suja juice.
Yes. Before we wrap up today's interview, I'd love for you to just quickly share about this new program that IIN has launched, which is their accelerated program. So instead of taking a full year to graduate, it's a 6-month program. So in
Mhm.
6 months, you could be have fully graduated. What does it take to do that program?
So that program is so awesome. If you're like a front row student and you love education and you're like, you know what, I always got straight A's, or even if you didn't get straight A's, it doesn't really matter. But what we want for students who are clamoring for this, who are like, you know, ripping their shirt off and they're like, I want to do this and I want to do it so fast. Like, I'm so ready to be a health coach. Like, we're not going to make you spin your wheels. You know what I mean? So, you have to really dedicate about like 10 to 15 hours a week and be committed to doing it in 6+ months, like there's like a break or two. So, it's like just over 6 months. But I mean, you could be done in like half of a year. And, obviously we want to set you up for success. So, you'd have to speak with a admissions rep, of course, but like really it's designed for our students. And I know you have listeners like this that like you can't stop getting information. You can't stop the self-study. You've watched every Netflix documentary on health. You read every blog. It's like that's the time you're spending week to week anyway. So why not just like devour the program?
Nice. Nice. Very cool. So like 90 minutes a day, would you say? Like what would it take breaking it down daily?
Uh, so 10 to 15 hours. Yeah, like 90 a day. Or, set yourself up to have like a long weekend day. And I actually just spoke with a student who finished a master's program and she was like, "Oh, that's fine. That feels like grad school." So,
There
used
you
to that,
go.
so
Nice. Nice. So
to-
if someone's done grad school, they're like, "Yeah, no problem. Sign me up for
yeah,
the accelerated program."
yeah, they're like, "Sounds familiar. Great."
Very cool. Um, awesome. So, is there anything that you'd like to say to the listener who's interested in becoming a health coach? Is there any information we didn't cover that's like really good for them to know?
I think the most important thing when you're considering your next steps, be it it's a career goal that you have, be it you want to just learn about holistic nutrition and personal development, if you make this commitment to yourself, it's incredibly exhilarating, right? We've talked about that. But know in advance that it'll be challenging. And that challenge will fuel and like funnel all of your skill set into this, like, it'll like crystallize. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So listeners can go to learntrail.com/coach to actually get a free sample class to give it to just give it a little feel. But yeah, I mean, I was the kind of person that just jumped in. I said, "Oh, this sounds like it's right for me." I googled IIN. When I heard about IIN for the first time, I googled it. I scrolled down the website. I saw some of the teachers who teach it and I thought, "Oh my gosh, these are all like the people I want on my show. Like these are all the
Right.
people I want to learn from. These like, Deepak Chopra and Dr.
Mhm.
Mark Hyman and Dr.
Right?
Joel Furman, who've actually, those two have been on the show. And I've had a bunch of the people who have taught at and all of the different teachers
Nice.
on the show. But that was like I looked at the list and I was like, these are the people I want to mentor me. And that was what sold me. I was like, that's it. I'm sold. I want to learn from these people anyway.
Right.
Like this is perfect. And it was brilliant because I loved every aspect of the program. And I just know that my listeners would resonate with it. So listeners, you can go to learntrail.com/coach to get a free sample class. I highly recommend just Googling IIN or the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, but it's way easier to just type in IIN into Google because it comes up as number one right there. It's the first, the first thing that comes up in Google. And just call them every is it everyone that answers the phone a graduate? Is that how it works?
Yeah, I mean, it's base level, you have to be a graduate, right? So anybody you call and speak with, we're going to have insight and personal stories, and we're all trained coaches too. So kind
That's
of have a
so cool.
coaching session around like your big dream. Like, let's talk about it.
That's awesome. So if someone's interested but like on the fence, they could call and basically have a great coaching session about their dream, and there's no pressure. I can attest to that there's no weird salesy pressure because I was like sniffing it out and they were just totally cool.
Yeah, we're here to
And
coach.
yeah, and I got my best friend to sign up and she did the program with me and that was rad. That was
Nice.
fantastic cuz we're long distance best friends now cuz I don't live in Toronto anymore, but she still lives in Toronto and we were like all the time messaging each other but like, "Oh, did you see that video? Did you see this? Did you try that recipe?" And it was really neat doing it with someone. Um and
Totally.
then, also doing it with my husband in a way because he was always around while I was like having it on, and then he would always kind of listen in. And but yeah, I just found talking to your staff amazing. So I feel
Yeah, we're here to
confident.
coach.
Yeah, I feel confident in that, and I can send my listeners to you and know that they'll be
Aw,
taken care of. So that's important to me.
awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here and taking the time to share with us. Um,
Absolutely.
I hope that when listeners call, they get you.
Me too. I would love to speak to all of your listeners.
Awesome.
That would be
And
so rad.
and then also listeners know that when you mention the Learn Trail podcast, you will get the absolute best deal possible. Because I was really happy that I was able to set that up. Working with IAN, that because I'm like kind of this cheerleader for you guys, and it's just because I've seen the difference that you're making in the world. Like actually, what Joshua said at the end of our interview, he like at the very end, he's like, "Oh yeah, we should talk about how that IAN is paying for lobbyists
Oh,
to
yeah.
support health coaching to actually be." And health coaching was being passed as like in the Senate that I mean, I don't know
Mhm,
the actual details. Maybe you could
mhm.
talk to about this, um, but that IAN is pivotal in helping to protect and evolve what health coaching is in the United States, and of course, many other countries mimic what the United States does also when
Right.
it comes to these certain careers.
Right, yeah, and it's all about visibility, right? So we're getting visibility, we're getting traction in the Senate. Overall, what we really want is to move toward a system that is seamless for health coaches to integrate into. The more visibility, the more structure, the more backing we have, the better. And yeah, we've been lobbying for years. So we're making amazing progress for sure.
That's really cool. I love that because there's a lot of, not a lot, but there are other health coach companies out there, and it's just so cool that Joshua's, putting his dollars and time and energy into
Mhm.
protecting health coaching for everyone regardless of wherever you
Yeah,
graduated from. That
totally.
that was really cool.
Well,
Awesome.
and it's true that his mission is to change the world and the shape of our healthcare system. To your point exactly. It's like he wants health coaches in the world because he knows that health coaches save lives. So he's actually taking action steps like we've been talking about this whole time,
Mhm.
to make that happen.
I love those testimonials. During the program, I loved hearing where health coaches were saying that like that their clients came back to them and said that because of the health coach helped them with observations, they were able to save their life, literally save their life. Like
Yeah.
it's someone, when you have a health coach, it's someone who's helping you learn how to listen to your body. And sometimes
Mhm.
that like listening to the early warning signs of things can save your life.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
And being told by a health coach that you have the capacity to do this,
Mm,
so huge.
cool.
You have the capacity to change your life.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Katie, for coming on the show.
Yes! Oh my gosh, my pleasure.
I
This was
feel like
so
we
fun.
should give a gold star to everyone who's still listening because
No
it's like,
kidding.
holy crow, like you and I could talk all day.
I know.
And this is what it's like. And you hang out with the other health coaches. Awesome, Katie. Well, thank you. Have a fantastic rest of your evening. And I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing this information. You got to
Absolutely.
stay in touch. I want to hear where you go, and because you just keep growing, and I can't wait to hear the kind of impact that you have on the world.
Thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure and a joy to speak with you. And thank you so much.